Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the September 4th South Florida Water Management District Resiliency Forum. I'm Drew Bartlett, Executive Director for the South Florida Water Management District, and I really appreciate everyone's participation, not only in this forum, but also all the comments and review that we received on our resiliency plan, which we had to submit on September 1st. A lot of engagement. It's a really large plan, very ambitious. And so I really appreciate everyone submitting those comments. Thank you for coming in person. I see we have folks that traveled from far and wide to get here in person. And also thank you for those participating online. Last week, I was moderator for a water quality forum about government collaboration. And so we talked about how important it is for government to collaborate in the water quality realm. But it really applies to so many different things, including resiliency. And the collaboration that we've been doing in South Florida around resiliency is paying off. Next week, we have a board meeting where I am taking to the board the approval to receive 3 building resilient infrastructure and community grants from FEMA and DEM. It's a total of $150 million coming into resiliency. So it's a real monumental. It's the largest BRIC grants ever granted out of FEMA. But it wouldn't have happened without a joint application, without collaboration with the local governments to make those things work. So that is happening across South Florida, all the way from Kissimmee, all the way through to the Keys, where governments are coming together to collaborate to make this work. And so it starts from from the district standpoint, it starts from our resiliency plan, and then it trickles from there. Later today, you'll hear an update from us and the Army Corps of Engineers on the planning efforts for Southeast Florida and the flood control system. And what you'll see is that we have figured out how to pool our resources and divide and conquer to try to advance that quicker than expected, so that we can address that critical flood control infrastructure while we also use mitigation funds, other things, and other parts of the district to try to bring resiliency through flood protection level of service to those other areas. But it's looking for opportunities to collaborate, looking for opportunities to pool resources. And so that's what we do. That's why we have this forum. That's why it was important for us to put together. So I really appreciate everyone's participation in this and engagement. So with that, I will turn it over to Yvette for some housekeeping, and on with the agenda we go. But thanks everyone for participating, and welcome to the South Florida Water Management District.
Great, thank you, Drew. Good morning, everyone. This meeting is being live streamed today. There will be an opportunity for questions after each presentation. Representatives from local, state, and tribal partners will have an opportunity to provide updates during agenda item number 9. Public comment will be taken during agenda item number 10 from those present in the room. Thank you for attending, everyone, and to you, Dr. Moran.
Thank you, Yvette. Thank you, Drew. Good morning, everyone. Again, thank you for being here with us today. I will, first of all, invite our statewide Office of Resilience Chief Wes Brooks to give some updates to us. So, Wes, can you hear us?
I can, Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, folks, it's been a whirlwind summer, and now I know we're all sort of holding on as we head into the stretch run of hurricane season. We've already had one storm hit the state this year. Thankfully, Hurricane Debbie was a weaker Category 1 storm. But what it lacked in wind, it certainly made up for with heavy doses of rainfall, especially in Sarasota County and north central Florida. While we didn't see historic levels of flooding like we did associated with Hurricane Ian, especially up in north central Florida, Alachua County area in particular, the Santa Fe River is finally expected to fall below flood stage near its confluence with the Suwannee later this week. Meanwhile, the Myakka remains in minor flood stage because of ongoing rain events since Debbie dropped at least a foot or more of rain throughout the area. So hopefully we won't see another tropical event this season, but if we do, I know our state agencies are prepared to help local communities respond and resiliently recover once again, as they have for many storms over the past couple of years. On the agenda, I'm really proud to have my friend and colleague Laura DeWay, DEM State Hazard Mitigation Officer, join the forum today to share all her agency has done to help communities across Southwest and Central Florida make progress towards what I'd call one of the most remarkable disaster recoveries yet. Many of you, like me, went through Hurricane Andrew about, 30 odd years ago. And, South Dade, took the brunt of that storm, obviously, and took, 2 decades really to get it all back together and start to really show good face again. For those of you who have been to mainland Lee and Charlotte counties, it's almost imperceptible that a major hurricane struck the area 2 years ago. Now, there's a lot of work left to be done. Obviously, Fort Myers Beach, Sanibel and Captiva, some of the barrier islands have a ways to go from where they once were. But all in all, it's been really impressive by the local communities, as well as our state and federal partners helping folks lift themselves up by the bootstraps. And I know Laura and her team have been very busy helping DEM implement resilience and mitigation strategies that are just going to help us further reduce future storm and flood risks when that inevitable next storm sweeps through. And finally, there's also been a lot of progress, as Drew mentioned, on the Section 216 Central and Southern Florida Flood Resiliency Study, since my office led a multi-agency resilience tour of some of the region's critical water management structures in April. I want to first just stop and thank Drew and Carolina for their leadership. As he noted, coordination is maybe the most critical element of effective governance in dealing with resilience. But the district, the Corps of Engineers, DEP, Broward, Miami-Dade, and Palm Beach counties have all worked really diligently and creatively to set a course here for our work in Southeast Florida. And now comes the hard part, where we have to execute the strategy and deliver those necessary feasibility studies and projects. But I know this unified team is going to get the job done. And I pledge the Office of Statewide Resilience is going to continue to work side by side with you all along the way. So looking forward to another great meeting, and happy to turn it back over to you, Carolina.
Thank you very much. Dr. Brooks, thank you. I will move to the front to step into my resilience updates. Give me just a second. Okay. So again, good morning, and really thank you for everybody who is joining us today. Before I really step into our resilience updates and everything we have been accomplished since the last time we met, I want to just recognize the team, the resiliency team that has been working above and beyond. I am sure everybody here is very proud that we passed September 1st. You probably know what I'm talking about. We all submitted our grants. So it was a big stretch on top of a really busy program. So I know the whole team committed and worked really hard for us to be here today. And I need to recognize each and every one from the team that are giving, again, beyond their normal roles to help us get here. It was another big stretch, and we are happy to be here and also excited to be partnering in our grants. Again, we have significant partnership and collaboration with the local governments, and we are really committed to continue on this path of building those projects in a fashion that we are really identifying the problems together and building those solutions and finding a path that we can implement resiliency in collaboration with our local governments here. Talking about the team, I want to welcome 3 new people here, 3 members. David Griffin is our resiliency project manager. He's coming to assist with the implementation. Wes and Drew just pointed to the fact that we are moving towards grant implementation, that we are moving towards like constructing those projects. And with the grant funding, it requires significant coordination, reporting. So we brought Tarana and we are bringing David Griffin to work on those grants, to work with making the bridge between our construction team. We have all the engineering PMs leading the construction side, and our budget team and all the reporting, really doing the planning coordination for all those projects to occur in collaboration with the consulting teams and, again, the stakeholders that we partner. We also have Aaron. Aaron replaced Pramod. He was our GIS specialist, and he went back. He finished his visa terms here in the U.S., so we are super happy to welcome Aaron. He got here at full speed with a lot of grants to work on, like just arriving here really at 200 miles per hour speed to be able to help us, and he did an incredible job on these first days here already, helping us to really provide all the supporting documentation for the grants, which is really extensive. And we are welcoming today, actually, is the first day, Estefania Salazar. She's replacing Nicole Cortez. Nicole joined our team as a full-time employee about a month ago. And we have Stefania joining us, very well recommended. I think we got her recommendation from 3 different universities here, so promising to come with a lot of a strong background here to work with us. We are super excited to welcome her to the team. And also, we are working on I know you cannot read this. Don't worry, we'll forward this to you all. It's a lot of words there. But we have been working as a team also to provide some structure. We are having 2 supervision positions within the team. So Nicole and Tarana step in to help us really coordinate some of the processes. So from the planning side, we have Nicole coordinating our staff augmentation contractors, really working on everything we do, plan, grants, and data analysis. And on the implementation side, we have Tarana really coordinating, leading this grant construction projects that we are now stepping in. I took the liberty to add Yvette here. She's a central core of our team. She is from the clerk's office. I'm sure Molly will understand, but she also plays a central role as she really helps us to put together this event and a series of other coordination efforts. So thank you. And just, again, we're going to share this with you all so you understand a little bit and you can find the names. And when you need some support here within the team, you can find the right person. Stepping into some of the work, again, that we accomplished and some of the milestones that we achieved on the past quarter. I will begin with the climate metrics, the water and climate metrics update. It's king tide season. We are going to talk a little bit about that in the next agenda item. Sorry, 3 agenda items down from now. In this, we have been making significant progress in our partnership with the University of Miami on the enhanced tide forecasts. So we used the NOAA formal tide forecast, and we built some models to enhance those to really give us more precise forecast. And we have been publishing since August 19, the first king tide event, the first day of the king tide season. We have been publishing every Monday the king tide updates. Up to today, no major king tide forecast. We are below the minor threshold from flooding risks, but monitoring, bringing the latest and greatest tools, and again, providing this information to all our partners in the region. We got extensive positive feedback last year when we launched this tool, and we continue to bring updates. There is a new model that we brought this year, the European combined with the American. Again, just stepping one more model in bringing enhanced data to the analysis. We are working extensively on the South Florida Environmental Report. This effort feeds 2 chapters, Chapter 2A and 2B. So we already have the drafts we submitted to our internal teams that are working on the documents right now. And 2 important dates that we have is October 2nd is when we open for public comments, so we'll share all the updates. And then March 1st next year is when we really publish. This year in addition to Chapter 2A, which is basic hydrology and a glance on the water year. On Chapter 2B, we publish evapotranspiration data, correlation with other data sets, which was something new. We have not been doing a ton of correlation, but really understanding what we see in terms of trends and trying to read that in coordination with other databases. We also had the salinity trend in the Florida Bay, some more data that was added to the analysis, and also the AMO. There was a series of internal discussions here on how the AMO, the multidecadal variability, influences some of our understanding here in terms of projections and informing our decisions. So we also have a session that was dedicated to this and some of the knowledge that we compile here in the agency this year. So stay tuned and submit comments and send us recommendations for next phase. I'm stepping here on the phase 2 slide. We had a kickoff meeting held on August 23rd. Our effort here was close. Our first year, phase 1, first 3 years actually, phase 1 effort was wrap up. This 2 months ago, we had a target and we accomplished most of the goals, which were 15 metrics. So bringing them all to the hub, bringing them all to the automation processes in DB Hydro. So we closed this phase 1 very successfully with the extensive help from internal teams and some collaboration with university. And we kick off phase 2 planning efforts this week. So what we are doing now, we are compiling some recommendations on what we should focus next. So we have some initial ideas that we map, with, again, just derived from the initial analysis, some internal coordination, again, some input from university. We listed them all, and we are going around to ask for some additional input, some coordination and understanding of available resources so we can move into the phase 2. We plan to really start the work later in the fall this year. We do have some work lined up, some resources lined up, but the plan for the next 3 years is what we are working right now. And Stefania, who is here joining us today, is going to be leading this effort with Nicole, who has been leading this effort. So stay tuned. We welcome recommendations if you have any need, if we understand that from a data perspective there is something we should be looking at, don't hesitate to let us know. This is the perfect timing. I also want to touch a little bit on the Florida Flood Hub. We continue to coordinate really closely with them, and a lot of the data analysis that we are doing are aligned with the state and the Florida Flood Hub, and of course the statewide Office of Resiliency. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in a slide next, but just in terms of the data, what we are working very closely with the Florida Flood Hub is the statewide rainfall projections. Right now, we are part of a work group, and we are also beginning to execute contracts with universities that will help us bring more data. Again, we need a lot of science here, and what we are hoping to achieve is developing a regional climate model for the state of Florida. So we have the scopes of work ready, and we are working with the Florida Flood Hub and DEP to get this advanced. Also, as part of data, still talking about flood data, there is a full presentation later today on that and the progress that we have been making in collaboration with you all again. But here, just celebrating the installation. We have been talking about those flood sensors for quite some time. It took us this effort to identify the right locations, to really see the gaps, like where those locations would really add to our existing network, and really the major goal of this effort to really test those the new technology that we have here, the rapid deployment flood sensors. So we have 5 locations selected and installed. This is big news at the Upper Kissimmee Basin. So S69 headwater and tailwater, Lake AJ. There is a culvert D along Nova Road and a bridge. This bridge, I want to just emphasize that this is in partnership with St. John's River Water Management District. So when we started this effort and we mapped those gaps, there was a gap that was coming from Hurricane Ian. All of us knew about it. The water that passed the boundaries between 2 water management districts even though they are drainage districts, drainage-based districts. When we have major events, there is exchange between the two districts, and that was a location that we wanted to monitor closer, and they came in with the funding for this on one side, and of course we do the other side, but really celebrating this collaboration with St. John's River Water Management District also for this effort. It was built with significant effort from them as well. We have been hosting every 6 months coordination meetings after Ian, just for us to enhance our partnership between the two water management districts and really building on all the lessons learned after Ian. And this is a concrete, advance. So now we have this new sensor installed there that will help us monitor water levels. And we are installing really close also 2 rapid development gauges in the lowest coast. And we have a 1 flood sensor. This flood sensor is a very small device. We collect it's not a real-time data. We just store the data on itself. And it's a very quick deployment tool that we can use during major storms. We usually put it in dry areas. So, and we measure like areas, like it's going to help us on extension of flooding in normally dry areas. So we are testing this mostly from a perspective of how we can deploy, how our teams understand the value of that, how we can read the data. So we have 1 location there in the lowest coast in S27 Little River that we are installing within the next month, I believe. So again, we are ready for the wet season with those new sensors. Next effort here, next update is with regards to critical elevations. You remember that this effort was initiated in November last year after a major rainfall event that happened, and we had extensive collaboration with some municipalities, especially municipalities downstream, that were coordinating with us to how to optimize the operations that we have. In that event specifically, there was room for all of us to enhance and optimize operation. And what we learned is that we could have handy those critical elevations that can better inform how we operate the system. And we coordinated very closely with the water managers here in terms of what do we want to request, what kind of data is valuable data for us to really better inform this whole process. And what we map is what we call critical elevations. So basically points that were located in the map that tells us that a water level, if it bypassed that elevation, causes some restriction in either a secondary system to discharge into the primary system or any other operational issue like a pump that cannot operate, a gate that cannot open. So we got extensive input from the cities, from our partners. Here you can see this map fully populated on the East Coast, some points also on the West Coast, some points even on the North. We made it a GIS tool. We coordinated, we already got input from the water managers. We are finalizing some edits they requested us to do, and we have some actions that we are pending. I have to apologize. This was something we were hoping to complete since the last forum. We just did not have the resources to step into that, but there are some questions pending that we want to follow up with you just to help us understand more clearly the impact areas around those points where we are really kind of reading those critical elevations. The capacity of each canal, that was something that the water managers told us, is there capacity at each canal to hold water to these critical elevations, the duration a little bit better, the structures that can convey water. We need to know the critical elevation, but it would be good to know how fast we can move as needed the water away from those points, and then interpolate some critical elevations along canals. So this is what we have been working. Aaron Ducaster here took the lead on this effort. We will certainly get back to you all as we finalize this project, and we will publish the full repository of data as part of our flood information resource database. We will certainly continue to on the data collection and refinement. So if I'm sure we are learning as we use this data and really inform ourselves on those critical elevations. And this includes elevations upstream and downstream. I'm not talking just downstream. I'm talking some areas upstream as well, that if we get to a certain level, we have severe limitations on how we can really effectively operate the system. So again, there is work to do mapping all those critical elevations and helping on the really informing the decision-making process in the agency. Lowest Coast Water Supply Plan and Vulnerability Assessment Update. We have an agenda item in the upcoming governing board meeting next week to provide the latest and really publish the water supply plan. Part of this plan this year, we are launching a groundwater modeling effort to map saltwater intrusion under future conditions. Very extensive effort, 3-4 years perhaps of team full dedication to be able to build, calibrate, and refine this tool. So for the plan itself, which is not ready now, it's an addendum that will come. We are looking 20 years ahead as statutorily requiredly, and then we are bringing sea level rise scenarios. So again, new effort, great advance here in terms of really giving us the capacity to model the future sea level rise scenarios and understand how that would impact saltwater intrusion and all those aspects that are fundamental for water supply. Then, as soon as we complete those runs that are part still of the schedule on the Lowest Coast Plan, we initiate a 50-year scenario run. This is not statutorily required, but this is something that we want to be able to look ahead and understand those conditions in a far future, so not just the near future, but also adding to a far future scenario here. So we run the same runs that we run for the Lowest Coast Plan with the sea level rise curves, of course, for a 2075 scenario, and we are going to add evapotranspiration and rainfall scenarios as well. So we are excited, working on all the input from the models. So right now we are preparing all the databases, all the input data, population projection, how we split these demands per well area, and also future land use. So all of those pieces are being built in the format of the model. So when the team is ready to run those additional runs, they have everything they need to run. And these additional models, they are a little bit delayed, but we are hoping to step into those runs early in 2025. FPLOS program updates. We have been making significant progress here, and I'm really happy to have 5 ongoing efforts listed here. So San Lucie, Martin County, Phase 1, Phase 2, with the support from the EP funding here, Resilient Florida. We are in the model development phase underway. We kick off this effort about 6 months ago. So in the early stages, we identified the tools, received significant amount of data from existing modeling tools from both San Lucie and Martin County. Thank you very much. I know it was a big effort to get those things. We are talking about really heavy models, but also we are committed to leveraging existing information. So that's the whole purpose of this. So making progress on that way. Palm Beach County and Upper Kissimmee Basin, they started together. They are about the same status here. Future conditions model runs, we already took a glance. We have results in the plan. We are just refining and finalizing those results and publishing the final reports from those 2 Phase 1 studies. C7 Basin, we have a Phase 2 study that is building on top of the C8, C9, so that those 3 basins there are the ones that we have more advanced model, so really able to model future with project alternatives for all those areas, and we are closing C7. Right now, what we are doing is we are formulating the alternatives for the C7 basin. And then we just step into the western basins, Henry and Collier County. Phase 1 study, we are on the model selection tool phase, really stepping into this effort right now. Completed, we have high-level cost estimates. That was something that was added to the Phase 1 scope for all the level of services studies. So we completed all of those for Miami-Dade and Broward, and we are adding that to Palm Beach and Upper Kissimmee, which were not in the regional scope. We amended, and of course, all the new studies, including Martin and San Lucie, already come with this. The reason we want this is so we can have some initial high-level cost estimates that can inform our resiliency plan, that can help on selection of projects, and again, really stepping into understanding a little bit better what we mean in terms of initial recommendations coming from those studies. Army Corps and District coordination efforts. I am not going to spend too much time on this slide. Again, we have a whole presentation at the last agenda item. Thank you, team, for joining us today. So Section 216, our ongoing effort, we are coordinating a scope and budget update with the VTAM pending a final approval from a $14 million study that we are landing. So a team will provide a little bit more updates on that next. We completed Future Without Total Benefits evaluation. We are refining some of the numbers. We use all the economic tools available to us, traditional tools, NAD, like just cost benefit, flood damage curves, and also some of the additional analysis that we are doing to bring in regional economics, socioeconomic data, and also environmental quality. So excited to be able to bring that to an upcoming workshop that we are planning within the month of October. What Drew mentioned in the beginning, and again, I'm going to provide more details next, is the initiation of Section 203. We are spinning off the original scope from the 216 to be able to develop more work in parallel. So this will be initiated, this will be focused on Broward County basins. We have funding from Broward County and DEP brought into this effort. And we are leveraging, we're building on everything that we so far achieved under the 216 umbrella, and getting this additional effort advanced very quickly. This is a very expedited schedule here, and we'll talk more a little bit about that next. And a comprehensive study, we are in the beginning really working on implementation guidance, the feasibility cost share agreement review, very initial steps, and really pending funding confirmation budget. There was no funding allocated in this fiscal year, I believe. On the core side, we are waiting for the closing of all the budget period there. It's possible that we delay a little bit more the initiation of this study, but continue to talk with St. John's River ourselves and the Corps on this study, and also assessing tools that will be needed for that. We have a proposal under review by ERDIC. It was selected, approved. We are just pending budget allocation for this on the compound flooding front. Planning updates. We have September 1st is not only our grants deadline, is also the publication of the plan, as this is our formal list of projects that we submit to DEP every year. So we publish the plan along with the submission of projects for funding consideration with DEP. So the 2024 plan is published. Yay, another big accomplishment. And again, just celebrating the team and the collaboration to be able to get to this point. We had 24 agencies writing us comments to the plan. We responded to all of that. Some of you did not receive our response yet, but it's drafted in our email, so wait, and we will send it to you all. But we incorporated all the comments. It's more than 250 comments that were brought to this year plan from 6 counties: Miami, Broward, Collier. We got 3 from Miami, 3 different teams within Miami-Dade County. Collier, Martin, Orange, and St. Lucie counties. We got Cutler Bay and Pompano, DOT, Seminole Tribe, the Bond, SHNAP, the Everglades Foundation, Sanitiba Cap Bell Conservation Foundation, and the South Florida Wildlands. And also we had public, 6 members of the public and 2 companies sending us comments. So again, we cannot thank enough. This plan is really built with several hands from all of you throughout those years. We take those comments very seriously. We incorporate them in the plan as we can. We use that also to inform ourselves a little bit more on areas that we should be paying more or less attention, and also internal coordination. So those comments are extensively reviewed, coordinated internally, and they bring a lot of value to the plan process itself. I just highlighted some of the common comments that we receive when we look at all the letters there. So really hardening the CNSF infrastructure is something that is recognized, about the importance of that and the limitations that we have today in the CNSF system. Of course, nature-based solutions and green infrastructure needs, celebrating some of the initial steps that we brought to the plan every year, but also recommending more. New technologies and innovation needs that we have in order to solve some of the challenges that we are presented and we are dealing with. Water quality consideration, that's also a recurring topic, theme that comes in a lot of those letters. As Drew mentioned today here, there is extensive effort statewide on this, and we, of course, read the same comments in all the letters that we receive. Age and age modeling coordination, and the need of advancing the right tools to the right problems that we are trying to solve, and again, the importance of advancing compound flooding analysis. Extreme rainfall, sea level rise, understanding, making sure those scenarios are well built, and how that translates in flooding risks. The saltwater intrusion and really water supply concerns, like reinforcing what else we need to be doing on that area. We have extensive comments on that too. As we don't have a vulnerability assessment really completed yet, there is not a lot of projects in the plan that are addressing water supply, but this is a recurring topic in some of the comments letter. Again, reinforcing drought risks and bringing the additional storage, not only from the drought, but also talking about storage needs in general to better and more efficiently operate the system. Suggesting public-private partnerships as we advance those projects. Talking about local and regional coordination, and a big push on us to go further on the West Coast. We have less projects and we have less advanced, but as we step in and we complete those additional planning efforts in the West Coast, I'm sure we are bringing more of those projects as well. We have a few planning grants that are also focusing on the West Coast this year. So committed to advance efforts and collaboration in this on the West Side as well. Underserved communities is also a topic, like just reinforcing the need to be looking at really disadvantaged communities in general. And then integration to ecosystem restoration efforts. Of course, we have extensive SERP and other ecosystem restoration efforts, and we work really closely with them as we think about projects from the resiliency perspective. One more thing just to remember, we published the plan on September 1st, and we need to submit the consolidated annual report on how we are implementing the plan, funds committed to those projects, and the status of implementation to the governor and legislators by October 1st. So we are working on that consolidated annual report for 2024. Local mitigation strategy coordination. Thank you for everybody who joined us today. We are also happy to have Laura Dewey presenting to us. We have been working more and more with the local mitigation strategy committees. In the 2024 plan update, we framed the projects in a way that can be easily incorporated by the local mitigation strategy committees. So what we have now is a list for all the projects, short descriptions, updated costs, and I'm blanking on one more thing that is required. So the plan is to, right away, now that the plan is published, submit the list of projects to each LMS that we have in the plan. I believe we have 7 or 8 LMS that we coordinate. Give them the status of those projects, provide the updated and latest information, and use this process on a yearly recurring basis to get always the more local mitigation strategy plans with the latest and greatest information about those projects. So for every LMS people here today, please be on the lookout for this communication. Our external affairs team will be reaching out to all of you, and we will send this list of projects, and we will be available to answer any question or provide any additional information as needed. Grant proposals, we talk about the ones we submitted. So 12 grant proposals submitted by the district, 3 planning projects and 9 implementation projects this year. 7 out of the 9 are the same that we submitted last year, and we didn't get funding, and 2 are new ones. So excited for this. We have 2 feasibility study proposals. This is a new category that was added this year to Resilient Florida. So we submitted, actually, South Regional Planning Council submitted a proposal for us, which is the canal enhancement at C9 Basin, so for feasibility study and initial design. I have to thank extensively to the South Florida Regional Planning Council team for partnering with us and submitting this proposal with us to Resilient Florida. It was a big push for them. We were happy to start this dialogue and this collaboration. They are a very significant partner in the region, and we are really glad that they step in, and we are working very closely on this. If we get this project funded, it will be, we will extremely benefit from their help and support in coordinating with the local municipalities for this project. And again, we have to thank them for stepping in here. And also Miami-Dade County, we have a project that we submitted 3 times. It's the Everglades Mangrove Migration Assessment. It is a pilot feasibility study, nature-based features, same category, very important project that we are trying to frame on the right way to get the right funds for this project. And Miami-Dade county submitted 2 proposals, one from the feasibility and one from the implementation perspective, again, in collaboration with us, and we thank very much for their support on that as well. For the FEMA brick, it was also, this week we are talking about intense work, where the deadline for the notice of intent was Friday last week, so we submitted 3 notice of intent. We are collaborating with Miami-Dade County at C6 Basin for 1 proposal. We are collaborating with Broward County, C12 Basin for another proposal, and we have the one that we submitted last year. We are going to resubmit this year, which is the canal enhancement at C9 Basin. So 3 proposals this year. We have between now and mid-November to complete those extensive. I think 3 brick applications are equivalent to 12 DEP applications. So we are going to work very extensively for the next 2-3 months. Partners here, I know we are broken record here repeating, but we have to celebrate the collaboration. So those are the counties that we really partner in submitting those proposals, and we are also listing South Broward Drainage District, which has been a partner, including on the FEMA brick proposals. And next steps is really continuing collaboration and always exploring project opportunities throughout the year as we advance the studies. Projects for review and award consideration, we continue to respond to RFIs. We closed 2 out of the 6 listed here. We have 4 more that we are closing. I know Laura will talk a little bit about that, not only for the entire state, but there was Hurricane Ian and disaster declaration, so DR 4673. So we continue to close and respond to all the details that are needed for those projects to be considered awardable. Let me use this word. So we are working very closely, and we appreciate the support from the EM team on this. And then we received the formal notice of award for the last year Resilient Florida applications this year. So C8 Basin Resiliency, we are adding to our BRIC grant there in partnership with Miami-Dade County. Homestead, Field Station improvements, and then also S169 West structure improvement. It's a resiliency for this structure in Glades and Hendrick County. So again, very pleased, grateful, and really excited to be working in collaboration with DEP Resilient Florida to implement those 3 projects. We added this line here, especially from Tarana and David's team here, to really talk about the extensive grant implementation process that we work. We have right now, if we add everything, 37 agreements being reviewed, coordinated, and finalized with our internal teams here. So 3 grant agreements being executed under Resilient Florida, plus the 3 new ones under review, quarterly reports, site visits, and plus an interagency agreement with Palm Beach County for this grant. We have also our flood adaptation study for Martin and San Lucie County. We are closing the work plan for this grant right now. For the BRIC, we have the agenda items for the upcoming governing board meeting. So 3 projects sub-awarded phase 1 to the district right now, and we'll have the grant agreements for phase 2 next, and we also have 3 interagency agreements that are part of this DEM FEMA BRIC agreements. And we have the innovative tech grant implementation. The final work plan was, I believe I will call it final because it's really, we refined it so extensively in collaboration with Miami-Dade County. We have very minor edits, and we are sending for DEP for final review. We're just waiting for Pamela, which was very busy on the Biscayne Bay Task Force Commission meeting yesterday. I didn't have the chance to talk with her yet to know how it was, but we'll get her final input here to submit this to DEP later this week. So we are also hosting workshops and collaboration meetings as we implement those projects. A lot of the partners are asking us for coordination, transparency as we advance design for those projects and also construction. So we hosted the first interagency workshop on August 27. We had the entire project team, the designers, the city, the counties. So all the project partners really in the room talking about the elements, the components of the project, the state of the design, what are design considerations that we need to account for, and even the deadlines. We have a very tight schedule with FEMA break here, and we were translating the need for us to act very efficiently on delivering all the required products so we can move move effectively in the implementation schedule that was presented to us from FEMA and DM. So again, just advancing those projects, coordinating with Rio State. We have Rio State development needs as well as part of this. Miami-Dade Parks, Village of Miami Shores, Miami-Dade Public Schools, and City of North Miami. So all of those are also Rio State partners for those projects, and we are planning a public outreach in December. Other relevant, more recent updates. This is my final slide. Florida Flood Hub work groups, as I mentioned, continue to have those meetings. We have our recurring rainfall work group meeting, and we have sea level rise work group meeting. We had a very great meeting on trajectory of sea level rise about 2 weeks ago. There is extensive research being done by these work groups with very great peer review being advanced and led by the state. The reports are out. Some of the draft reports and PowerPoint are out there, and we'll have a workshop in October. I'll give you the details on the next slide, upcoming to show all the progress of those work groups. So stay tuned. A lot of relevant information coming out of those discussions and really informing a statewide perspective here in terms of future conditions and the best way that we use data, interpret, and build scenarios. One of the work groups effort, it's not a formal work group yet, but it's a very extensively coordination effort that is being led by the statewide Office of Resiliency in collaboration with the Florida Flood Hub and with funding from the Silver Jackets team. So also Army Corps, DM, and all 5 water management districts is this flood risk modeling. So basically they built a repository of all we are building a repository of all relevant flood models existing in the state, identifying gaps around the state, finding the best way we can leverage all of those existing models, finding a way that we filter and kind of discuss a little bit what each model does and what does not, and then building this repository database. We ourselves submitted more than 500 models, and we thought it would be the bum there, and we got other water management districts with even more models. So there is significant number of models out there in the state. We are filtering those, identifying the most relevant, and really building this extensive effort. This is the right way to start a statewide flood modeling effort, really mapping what's out there, identifying gaps. So we are excited to be part of that and really recognizing the work that is being done right now with the support of the Silver Jackets and led by the, again, Florida Flood Hub and the statewide Office of Resiliency. I touch on the regional climate model projections. We are really assisting the Florida Flood Hub here with the contract execution, DEP, 3 water management districts, DOT. We are pulling money together to support, to really fund this study. And the 2 universities are Florida State University and University of Miami that will be working with us on this regional climate models. And of course, the USGS is also a partner. They have been working with us already. They already have an agreement with the Florida Flood Hub, and they are already developing the initial tasks. They have 2 of the deliverables already completed, which is setting up the WRF, the Water Research Forecast Model, in a very, if I'm not wrong, it's 4 feet of resolution. So we are really setting up a very refined regional climate model that will help us answer a lot of the uncertainty that we have for Florida specifically, because the way rainfall and the climate occurs here is not the same way that this is done nationwide. We know the limitations from global climate models that are done in the U.S. scale, and we need to develop specific models that really read Florida, and that's what we are doing with the collaboration with all those agencies here. Final slide, upcoming events. So just again, reference to you all, Florida Resiliency Conference coming up next week, Florida Engineering Society, Miami chapter coming in September 20, the workshop that I mentioned that we will have a Florida Flood Hub presentation on all the work group progress on October 17 in St. Petersburg. symposium on flood adaptation. First time the symposium by UF in October in the Kissimmee, Orlando area. And then the Southeast Florida Climate Leadership Summit, the famous leadership summit here, December 16, 18 in Key West this time. So share any other events that you have during the Around the Table updates, and feel free to use those links if you're interested to join and participate in any of those upcoming events. With that, thank you very much. I will now open to see if anybody has any question here around the table before I move to the next item. Comments or questions? Yes, thank you, Jennifer.
I just wondered if you could expound a little bit on how counties are working with the district. You had mentioned about you all supporting grant proposals to DEP's Resiliency Florida, and a couple of the counties specifically, but other counties or cities that might be interested, how do you go about working with them, selecting which ones you're gonna, work to support, and, what would you recommend to them if they're interested in pursuing that?
Thank you. Thank you very much for this question. So the way we do is a project-based approach. So as we identify some of the critical projects that we have from our side, we are running those models, we have the level of service assessment, we have other assessments that are happening right there, like post-disaster, Hurricane Ian, for instance. We start identifying those infrastructure enhancement needs and prioritizing this as part of our normal planning process. And at the same time, we reach out to those counties, municipalities, to understand how this project can be and should be integrated to existing projects, local projects. So we do this extensive research, again, to understand how big our project needs to be, understanding what else is happening in the secondary, tertiary system, and also trying to understand what are the limitations that they see in our system, what might be some of the ways they are proposing to enhance. So all of those grants, in general, they provide additional points if you are really collaborating. And not only that, we really understand that the approach, the right approach here to advance those projects is to have an integrated strategy. So looking at how we balance the needs, how we propose the solutions on a joint way, and how we size them. I think that's a very important piece as well. If we have something happening in the secondary system that would impact, and the sizing on the primary system will be reading from this. So we push the conversation usually when we go and rank the projects and we start those dialogue, but we are extensively asking and really opening up opportunities for any of the local governments that would like to come and talk to us. We had 2 requests this year that came. None of the grants that we are working right now, but requests that came from local governments for us to work with them on specific projects. And we'll be positioning ourselves to be able to work in collaboration with them as possible as we advance new grant formulation processes. So again, reinforcing, we are open, very open. If there are projects being discussed out there, and we would like to partner on a joint proposal to any funding opportunity, we are really welcoming. And according to available resources, we are not, we have limitations from our side, but according to the available resources, we are eager to partner with the local governments. That's the right way of doing things. Yes, Amy.
Thank you for the update. It was very well, comprehensive, and I enjoyed it. Is there any update on the actions that the regional planning councils are doing in association with the DEO grant that they were trying to do with rainfall? I didn't see that in your slides.
Yeah. We don't have an update right now from them. There is an upcoming meeting coming. They are doing my understanding, the way I'm reading, each planning council is now going back and getting input from their local governments. I saw 2 of those upcoming meetings, not in our area, but I saw not the Treasure Coast, but I saw 2 of those being scheduled. I think it's East Central Florida and Central Florida. What we are doing too is the group gave us all the outputs from their model. I don't remember, I wish Francisco was here, but they gave us the outputs from the Fling model to be compared with the level of service in the areas where we have. So we understand there are limitations in some parts, especially when we have control structures. So we receive all the inputs from them, all the models that they run, the outputs, the results. And we are doing a crosswalk right now. Francisco is leading this effort in our team. And they are being very collaborative. They help us on understanding all the assumptions. We are walking through this together, but we don't have the results yet. Francisco I believe Francisco and Honging are right now running these crosswalks and reading some of those initial comparisons. We did the same for the FATM statewide effort, and we are hoping to do the same for the Cascade on the watershed planning. Yeah. Okay, any more questions? Yes.
How often do you guys receive data from the devices that are placed all over the state, and also getting that information out to your cities and your counties in the area?
Let me see if I understood your question right. You are asking how often I get data from the state, from the Florida Flood Hub, or the?
From your devices that are placed all over the state?
Okay, from our own devices. Most of our devices are real time, and I would say we probably have the most extensive network of data that is coming real time. We have data that is every 15 minutes, especially on water stages. I am not the best person to describe. I think that's all I can say about that. But we have our team, and if you need any information about how to access the data to DB Hydro, if you need any better understanding of what we have out there, there are extensive trainings online, but we have our external affairs plus the DB Hydro team available to provide any assistance that you need to really, it's a monster amount of data. So any help to step in and quickly get into what you need is available. And just one more thing I want to say, there was a new interface, DB Hydro Insights is the name. It's a really nice product because the interface itself is not user-friendly, the DB Hydro, the normal one. So they built this interface that helps you navigate and step into the data. It's very user-intuitive. I have to say that the IT team did an incredible job really translating a lot of this data into this structure that is much more manageable. And if you haven't experimented yet, go there. I am a data geek, and I have a ton of fun just kind of spending time in those tools.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other comment before I invite Laura to join us? Okay, Laura, I'm sure we are super excited to hear from you. Thank you again for coming and joining us. Laura is the Bureau Chief of Mitigation for the Florida Department of Emergency Management, Florida Division of Emergency Management, and she will be talking to us today about mitigation updates, especially after Ian, but her presentation is much broader, and again, we really appreciate your time and availability to join us today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for the introduction, Dr. Moran. And thank you for everyone who so far has mentioned the BRIC grants. We're really excited to get those moving. I know it's been a long process, Dr. Moran, so we're really excited to see those moving along. Next slide. So, you know, there's a lot of overlap between mitigation and resilience. For us at the Florida Division of Emergency Management, what we're focused on is trying to assist communities with taking actions to reduce or eliminate long-term risk to people or property. Next slide. And it's been shown in studies that for every dollar spent on hazard mitigation, it provides the nation with $6 in future benefits. Next slide. So if you aren't aware, I would say probably our most common program is HMGP, Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. It is available after a disaster, so it's and the amount that we get for it is in proportion to basically the size of the disaster. So, for example, for Hurricane Ian, we received $1 billion with a B for mitigation projects. But for the Broward flooding, we only received, I think it's less than 10 million. So it's a much, it varies a lot every year that we have every disaster, I guess. But then, as Dr. Moran mentioned, we also have our annual program, the BRIC program, as well as the flood mitigation assistance programs. So I just wanted to give a brief overview in case somebody didn't know about HMGP. I know that there's a lot of partners here on the call, so I just wanted to give a plug for HMGP. Next slide. So eligible project types, elevations, any, residential mitigation. We do a lot of structural retrofits, infrastructure retrofits, as well as critical facility generators. That's a very common project type that we do. But we can also do the, the larger flood risk reduction type projects. Next slide. So I just wanted to give a couple of stats. So for Hurricane Ian, the total available was over $1 billion. We received 442 complete applications. The total project cost for all of those applications was $2.2 billion. So we always encourage, the over submission because, of course, as we go through the review process, projects might get withdrawn because, the community found another funding source, or maybe something happens and they don't have the match for the project anymore. Or unfortunately, sometimes the project is determined to be ineligible, for various reasons. And so we always suggest and recommend and encourage over submission so that we're sure we're going to be able to use all of that funding here in the state of Florida, because otherwise we have to return it to Florida, to FEMA. So we're really happy that we got all those additional applications so that we're sure we'll be able to use all that funding. I do want to mention, if you haven't applied for HMGP in the last couple of years, we do have a new process. It's called, it's a system that the agency is moving to enterprise-wide. So it's the Division of Emergency Management Enterprise Solution, and it's basically an online portal where we can, locals will submit the projects through there, and then we review them in that system. And then eventually it will be able to also do the actual grant management, the quarterly reports, the payments, and all of that in the system as well. And that has helped us so far to expedite reviews so that we can submit to FEMA faster. Eventually, we hope that it'll really streamline the whole grant process from application through review to implementation and closeout. We're not quite there yet for post-award, but we're looking forward to getting there soon. And hopefully, if you have used DEMIs, it was hopefully a smoother process for you than the paper applications. So for Hurricane Ian, the highest number of projects by project type, we had 126 projects for generators for critical facilities. And then we had 80 projects for flood risk reduction. as well as 54 projects for infrastructure retrofit, 52 residential applications, and 47 wind retrofits. Next slide. And then I just pulled together the counties who submitted projects under Hurricane Ian that were within the district here. So you can see Lee County had 78 projects. I'm not going to read it all off, but the allocations for each county are in proportion to the amount of damage that county received. And so it makes sense that Lee County had, more projects because they had a bigger allocation. So all of these projects have either already been submitted to FEMA or are currently undergoing programmatic engineering and environmental and historic preservation reviews. And as Dr. Moran mentioned, if you have a project that is with us and we've sent an RFI, please make sure to work with us and get that information back to us so that we can get your project through the queue and submit it up to FEMA. And thank you to Dr. Moran for that coordination and collaboration on your project specifically. Next slide. I did also just want to briefly mention the Broward flooding. So this was a much smaller scale compared to Hurricane Ian. So the amount available, as I mentioned before, about 8 million for HMGP. And really it was only Broward that got an allocation. So we received 23 applications and the total cost was 46 million. So great job to everyone who submitted because again, that just makes sure that we're going to use all that funding and then we know that we have those applications ready if there's another disaster in the future and we can have those kind of shelf ready to go. So we received projects for 11 generator projects and 6 flood risk reduction. Again, most of those in Broward, and then we did receive 2 in Monroe. Basically, if those 21 projects don't use up that 8 million, then we would be looking at the Monroe projects. Next slide. Oh, I think I meant to delete that slide. Sorry about that. Next slide. And if you aren't already subscribed, we do have a link here. It's also on our website where you can kind of select the type of information that you want to receive from the Mitigation Bureau at DEM. So I would highly recommend subscribing because that is how we're sending out all of our communications now. So any grant announcements, any new resources that are available, things like that, will all be sent out through that system. And then I have our just some links to our different programs in case you want to learn more, aren't familiar. Next slide. These are the links to the specific grant pages. We have, for the FEMA grants, we also have the FEMA links as well. Next slide. And this is just a directory showing the contacts in case you need something specific from any of us at the Bureau. We are happy to assist. And I believe that is my last slide. I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, thank you so much for the invitation to kind of talk about where we are with HMGP. And after Hurricane Ian, I know there were a lot of challenges with the storm, obviously. Every storm's different, but Hurricane Ian had a lot of challenges, obviously. And we're really excited to just continue to help our communities to rebuild in a way that will reduce future risk. So that's all from me, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you very much for your slides. Your topics extremely relevant to everything that we are doing. As you mentioned, there is significant overlap on how we do resiliency and mitigation, and having the opportunity to partner and collaborate with you and your team is essential for all of us here in this room. So thank you for your time. Any questions for Laura? Yes. Thank you, Sonia.
Hi, I'm Sonia from the city of Miami. One
You just
question.
have holding?
I'm holding it. Can you hear me okay now? My voice does not carry. So one question with the Broward County mitigation funding, could any county or city have applied for that?
Yeah, so all of our HMGP, the way that it works is there's an allocation set for the counties that were impacted. So in this case, it was just Broward, but then we have a tiered system to make sure that we do use all of the funding. So tier 1 and 2 are for those impacted communities. And then tier 3 is open basically statewide. In this case, I don't think that we will get to tier 3, but we do sometimes reach that. And so technically, yes, anybody can apply to any of the HMGP openings, but it would just be that, you kind of won't you won't get funded first, and we wouldn't find out until basically those other projects are either deemed ineligible or withdrawn for whatever reason.
Amy, yes.
Hi, this is Amy Eason with Martin County. What is the typical time frame once an RFI is completed and you submit it to FEMA from FEMA's review to the municipality getting the funding? Because I have a project right now that's been submitted to FEMA. I was just curious what the typical time frame is.
Typically, once it's been submitted to FEMA, it's usually about, I would say, 1 to 3 months, depending on, FEMA's backlog and our backlog. We try to move as quickly as possible once we get that award, but FEMA has to do a couple of things. And if the project is over $1 million, they also have to notify Congress of the project being funded. And then when that takes, 2 weeks to a month. And then once it comes back from there, they have to process the actual award and then send it to us. And then from there, once we receive the award, we begin the contract at routing and execution. So I would say 1 to 3 months. However, at the moment, FEMA is under immediate needs funding, which means that they are not processing any new awards until the disaster relief fund is replenished. We're expecting it to be replenished hopefully by October 1st, if not, early October. So right now, any awards that are up there basically are kind of stuck until that INF is lifted and they're able to finish, complete the routing process for all of those projects. And we have about like over 100 projects right now that are sitting there, but we're doing all we can to prepare on our side so that we can route those contracts really quickly once we get those approvals back from FEMA.
A follow-up question. When you just mentioned if a project was over $1 million, then it has to go to Congress. How much of that timing is there if it has to go that route?
That was about, it's about 2 weeks to a month. It's called large project notification. Anytime there's a project that the agencies are funding over $1 million, they just have to notify. Sometimes they'll come back with questions, typically not, but it's usually, there's nothing, like a project won't be denied at that point. It's just a formality that has to be done.
You.
Hi, good morning, Laura. This is Jeff Jiang, City of Hollywood, Department of Public Utilities. I noticed first the presentation is very helpful. I'm especially interested in the grant opportunity for generators. Our city, we have about 100 pump stations. Just wondering what type of criteria will help us improve the opportunity to get the grant awarded for generators, if you can share. Thank you.
Yeah, so for our generators, it's it has to be on a critical facility, so a pump station would definitely qualify. I would add that those are some of our most successful and impactful projects. So I would definitely suggest looking into HMGP. Any type of hardening, retrofitting on those pump stations is going to be really beneficial to your community, and we definitely can fund those projects. So if you want to follow up with me specifically, I can, there's some resources on our website, but if you email me directly, I can help you find those on the website.
Okay, great. Thank you, Laura.
Yep.
Laura, I have a question, confirmation maybe. This is Carolina. We had one project in Palm Beach County that we submitted for Hurricane Ian. It was the culverts that that were one of the culverts. We got erosion, significant erosion after Ian. And we are proposing to replace four, I believe, sorry. And then we had the new disaster declaration when we were considering to apply again, thinking we would have more chances. And the recommendation that we received from your team was that, no, we don't need to apply twice. And once you apply for one disaster declaration, if you apply for the next one, then you basically withdraw your project from the first one. I think, can you confirm that? I think this is important information for everybody in the room to just make sure that we are, doing the right thing, like should we spend energy or not, and how we ensure that we, have the more opportunities to get those funding.
Yeah, so our typical recommendation is that if you do submit the same project under 2 grant opportunities, at some point, whenever one is awarded, you'll have to withdraw the other. So, assuming, it sounds like if they made that recommendation, they felt pretty sure that the project would be awarded under the current, like the first one that you applied for. But we definitely have projects that are submitted under multiple disasters. It's just, if it's typically whatever one you applied to first is most likely going to get awarded first, just because of the way that the process works. However, there could be caveats to that depending on which program it is, and just some exceptions here and there. So I would say it's kind of a case-by-case basis. So if it's a project that you really need funded, I would say if it's already been applied under one, we can look at kind of where that project is in the process, and then provide guidance on, if you should or shouldn't apply under a different program.
Perfect. Thank you for the clarification. I think that was the case. We were far ahead in the Ian for that specific project, and that was the recommendation that we received. So we decided not to reapply. But I think you clarify here that we could potentially reapply. Just when we are ready for an award is when you have to withdraw one of them. This is very good and helpful. Thank you, Laura. Okay, anybody else? Any other question for Laura? Okay. Thank you, Laura. Again, thank you very much for your time here. And I'm sure we'll be coordinating. And as Laura said, reach out to her if you have any additional question. And thank you. Okay, moving back here. I am not going to make this presentation, but I will do some introductions. And I have a very big team of experts here that will be stepping into that. You heard parts of this in many different forums. We are excited to bring this all together today. We really kind of got to a very important milestone as we implement king tide and wet season coordination efforts, and we have a series of tools. Amy, your question about how we get in contact with the local governments, sorry, it was Jennifer, how we really are effective in collaborating on grants. One portion that I didn't talk about is our tools, our data. Everything that we develop for us, we are making available to our partners, local partners. So from data, of course, data analysis, data outputs, from tools, I extensively mentioned in this forum that, for instance, the flood damage tool that we develop in collaboration with Deltares is a tool that is available for anybody that needs to use to help do cost-benefit analysis. We have used this tool to all our BRIC applications. It's extensively reviewed by Laura's team. It's accepted. It's a free tool. It's out there. You can download the tool. We have user manual. We have exposure database. I mean, we are making resources available to not only partner with us, but also for our local governments to use this data, the tools, and the resources to their own applications. So take advantage, don't hesitate to reach out to the team. And one of the tools a lot of the tools, but significant amount of effort and coordination that we have is also what's going to be the topic of this presentation now. If you walk on this path of grants, you probably know that documenting the damages, talking about when, how recurrent is the flooding, and showing evidence is a significant portion of your process in ensuring the funds. And we have been building those tools to really enhance our documentation effort for the entire region. We have here today not only the tool itself, the milestones that we achieve with the tool and how we are putting the data together, the repository, how you all can access the data, but also on efforts that we have for king tide and wet season readiness. So again, this is just a reminder for all of you based on some of the previous presentations, but we are documenting flood occurrences, king tide rainfall, surge flood occurrences. First of all, with this goal of long-term data strategy, really capturing, storing relevant data, building this repository that we can better understand and characterize flood risks. This repository, this South Florida flood-related information, really consolidates the historical data and really help on analysis and insights. We were able to do a very extensive research on past events. It's all in the database. Chris will talk a little bit more about that, and even how you can, the tools that were built to help you find the data. This data is also essential for our flood risk modeling. There is a lot of papers out there talking about the lack of evidence for us to calibrate model other than water levels in the existing water bodies. We are good on that. We can show that our models are really well calibrated if you have data monitoring in your water bodies and you know water levels. But understanding the extent of this flood, how far from your water bodies the flood occur, how was the deep of this flood, and really the timing and duration is something that we have severe limitations. And we are now bringing tools and data that can really help to calibrate models, validate models one step further, really on the overland flooding portion. So the more data we collect, the more data will be there available for calibrating models in the future. Again, just assessing flood vulnerability as a whole, have this flood mitigation and adaptation scenarios built on more solid information, and really making sure that we are addressing the real vulnerabilities that we have in the system. And as I said, grant applications in general, project certification, through all the steps that we walk on DEP, on DEM, all the grants, the evidence of past flood occurrences is important. So we have this all ready for you there. So excited to bring the whole team here, a lot of the people that are involved on those tools, development of those tools, data analysis, and I will start here with Todd. No, sorry, those are still my slides. So just data that we collected to the 22 king tide season. We started this back in 2021, I believe. 2022, we collected some data. So again, just an exercise that we do internally and with some of the partners to document, to send us data from this king tide event occurrences. So 2023, not a significant king tide year, but some of the outflows at S26 here during our October 30 king tide event. And then now, yes, I'll bring Todd here to talk a little bit about this 2024 king tide season. And then Todd, I'll let you transition to Diana, each one transition to the next one. We have, as I said, a very strong team here that will be tag teaming to present all of the portions of this item today. So thank you, Todd, for joining us. He's our senior meteorologist here in the agency, and he is leading this king tide season coordination effort.
Okay, good morning, everyone. As Carolina was just discussing, the resiliency team has made enhanced tides a subject that needs to be addressed as part of its master plan. And speaking of enhanced tides, we've reached that time of the year when our concerns grow over enhanced tides. Now they can occur any time of the year, but it's king tides that occur from the late summer through the fall that are of the greatest concern. So why do they occur? The main reason is because it's this time of year when the sun and the moon and the earth align, and their combined gravitational forces, they exert a stronger gravitational pull on the Earth's oceans. You can think of it as the oceans bulging, if you will, as a result of the gravitational pull. And this occurs at new and full moon. But the tides, they're further enhanced when the moon is at its closest approach to the Earth, something called perigee. And so there's an extra gravitational pull from that. This year, as you can see from the chart on the bottom graphic, the tides are, the full moon occurs roughly mid-month, between mid-August and November. Sometimes the king tides, they extend into November, like they did last year. And after this time, they decrease as we head into the winter months. Actually, from January through March, they're at their lowest. And you can see that new moon occurs at the first of each month. So during this time of enhanced tides, we plan to keep a watchful eye for any other factors that could further augment the tide. What do I mean by that? Meteorological or oceanic factors. For example, if there's a tropical cyclone or another storm system nearing, that can have an effect on water levels. There could be swells from a storm over the North Atlantic unrelated to a tropical cyclone. That also could have an effect. Or there could be strong onshore winds after a frontal passage. We're not quite there yet, but when the wet season is closer to an end, that may be a possibility. And then we'll assess whether these king tides around these peak times, whether they could be further enhanced. Of course, our local communities, they're very concerned about enhanced tides because of the flooding risks to vulnerable and low-lying areas. And this time of year, we're not quite out of the wet season, flooding can be compounded by heavy rainfall. So we are just now passing the second peak of the wet season. And although the total amount of rainfall, it does begin to decrease as we approach the end of the wet season, which is typically in mid-October, there can be situations where very heavy rain occurs, whether it be a tropical cyclone or a stalled front or something of the like. So should heavy rainfall occur when king tides are peaking, obviously this can present additional problems. And the South Florida Water Management District, we have a vested interest in monitoring king tides as well as forecasts of heavy rainfall. So during significant rain events, water managers, there's a need to evacuate water into the Atlantic or the Gulf of Mexico to mitigate flooding. And this can be impeded during a high tide, and especially so if we're also experiencing a king tide event. So knowing exactly what the water levels are going to be in days in advance, that's very valuable information. And that's what we're going to aim to do. We're going to aim in our tidal outlooks to present all the information, the best information that we can about what to expect in the week ahead. We're also at the peak of the hurricane season, and I know it's been remarkably quiet since mid-August, but we know this time of year things can change very quickly. And tropical cyclones, even if they're not making landfall, and that would produce a storm surge, they can be over the western or northwestern Atlantic Ocean or in the Gulf of Mexico, and they can exert an influence on water levels from remote distances. They can perturb the ocean, and with the swell energy propagating long distances away, it reaches the east coast of Florida or the Florida Gulf Coast. All right, next slide, please. Well, many of you know that we have an important partnership with the University of Miami, from which we have a tidal prediction project that is now in its second year, and it will be completed at the end of the year. How did this all develop? Well, it all started after talking with a colleague. I was at the Tropical Meteorology and Hurricane conference a couple of years ago, and I was talking about a range of topics with a colleague, and he was discussing, just in passing, some novel research by an undergraduate student at the University of Miami. What he did is he used tidal data from Virginia Key and a wide variety of other environmental factors that are known to affect the tide, and he built a very, very sophisticated tidal prediction model. And we're in luck this king tide season. We have, he's been working on the model now for some time and adding to it slowly but surely. And we have this very skillful tidal prediction model to provide guidance and to better alert us to what sort of water levels to expect when king tides are peaking in the months ahead. And one of the chief components of the model is that it accounts for sea level rise. Over the last 30 years, water levels at Virginia Key, they've risen by more than half a foot. And it does vary a little bit depending on where you are on the coast, but I think that's a good approximation. The NOAA forecasts, on the other hand, they are based primarily on astronomical and climatological factors, and they don't account for any sea level rise. And so obviously they have a systematic low bias. And so the whole motivation behind the project is to develop a model to improve tidal forecasts. And so these other external factors that I mentioned, I have them listed here on the slide. One is mean sea level pressure. Another is the wind speed and the wind direction. Also sea surface temperature. We'd rather have something called oceanic heat content, which is integrating the amount of heat energy within a layer or a depth in the ocean. But sea surface temperature provides for a good proxy. And then also swell energy and swell strength. So he developed a multi-regression model, and each of these predictors, they carry a certain weight. And I think it's important to try to explain these physically. I guess we can go one by one. With mean sea level pressure, the best explanation is that the model knows, if you will, that low pressure is nearby, and that could indicate storminess and some potential for elevated water levels. In terms of wind direction, it does matter whether the wind is directed toward the coast or away from the coast, or parallel to the coast. What we've noticed in the tidal prediction model is that when the wind direction is perpendicular to the coastline and it's oriented toward land, that can push water onto the coast, very similar to what you would expect with a storm surge. And if there's a wind direction that's probably most important, it's north-northeast. And I think the reason that's true is you have the component toward land, the easterly component, But the northerly component is also important because it runs counter to the Gulf Stream. And what that does is it helps to sharpen wave activity. Then sea surface temperatures, that's a basic measure of the warmth of the ocean. And we know that the warmer the water, the more volume it occupies through thermal expansion. So also an important factor. And then finally, significant wave height. And it's a measure of the swell energy that can be directed toward the coast. As I mentioned just previously, because perhaps of the distant storm. So if we use the sea level rise adjustment, and then the contributions, we're using forecasts of each of these external factors. And if we add them all up, that's where we get the output from the tidal prediction model. Now, the forecast of mean sea level pressure and wind direction, sea surface temperature and swells, those come from what we first used was the GFS model, which is the Global Forecast System model or the American model. And it's both a weather model and they also have an ocean model. And the student, he first used that model, and that's been completed. It's actually long been completed. And when we did some skill score testing, what we found is that his model reduces NOAA's forecast error by 75% in the first day, and then up to 50% for all days after that, out to 10 days. So, that's quite a lead time, and with increased skill relative to the NOAA tidal forecast. As part of this project, the model has now been expanded to 6 other sites other than Virginia Key. You can see them on the map there to the right. And that includes Lake Worth, Port Everglades, Baca Key, Key West, the Naples Pier, and then Fort Myers was added just recently. So the second phase of the project is now using a different forecast model, a different weather and ocean model from the European Center, which is known to be not only very reliable, but also very skillful. So we're now using its forecast of the same parameters, mean sea level pressure, wind direction, et cetera, in order to make a forecast. And the student has recently completed that. And the last stage of the project, which is to be accomplished late this year, I know that he's busy working on it right now, is the incorporation of ensemble forecasts from both of these models. And the reason for that is we want to arrive at a probabilistic forecast of the tidal level up to 10 days. For those of you who don't know what an ensemble is just a collection. And when we talk about weather forecasting, what we're talking about is a collection of forecasts. And this collection comes from varying the initial conditions. So if you perturb the initial conditions, you end up with a variety of forecasts. And if the initial conditions are perturbed in the right way, then you can end up with a realistic range of the possibilities. So as I mentioned, we're quite lucky to have this. This king tide season has been a work in progress. You can now find some of the output. You're seeing some right there in the graphic at the bottom there, below the Florida map. And you can now find it on the metrics hub, the South Florida Water Management Metrics Hub. We plan to use this model quite extensively. The output is available to everyone, all local communities, and I think it'll be important. We hope that it's important. It's important not only to us in terms of decision making, but we hope that others find it to be equally as important. And it's all possible because of our collaboration with the University of Miami. That's something that could only have taken place because of communication. Communication is key. Communication with our colleagues to try to address some of the resiliency issues that Carolina has been discussing today. And with that, I'm going to throw it back to Carolina.
Perfect. Thank you, Todd. Diana is the next. Oh, Nicole? We had the order here, so no problem. So Nicole is the next one. I apologize. She's going to talk about the hub.
Mm-hmm. Hi, everyone. I just want to reiterate what Carolina started with here. You get to see a lot of faces during this one agenda item. because it really takes many groups here at the district in our agency to make this happen. And so I just want to highlight that. And Todd gave a really good introduction to our partners at So I do just want to shout out Brian McNulty and Nate Hill at who we've partnered with on this. And just like Todd said, it takes a lot of communication and coordination within all of our teams, including one that's not here, IT, that helped us on this side too. So I'll actually just talk about the hub really quick. I think we do share updates here regularly. I just want to reiterate that the hub is where we publicly share all of the products that we have. So all of the data analysis findings, but in addition to that, providing context for those and an ability to view them and access data either directly or also just by going ahead and accessing things through DB Hydro as well. And all of this is really based on the reporting that we also do through the SFER and all of the kind of work groups and data analysis efforts that Carolina highlighted earlier during the water and climate resilience metrics update portion of her presentation. And with that being said, really, before I bring up the hub and do just a quick demo so that Diana can share all the functionality in the dashboard, I think the most important thing to know here is that the model from that Todd just described, along with his interpretation every week, along with the other meteorologists here, Mark Nissenbaum, is what really is the basis of our weekly tidal outlook that goes out every Monday, except for this week because it was a holiday. And if you're not signed up for that, just feel free to catch me after the meeting and I can add you. But right now, this list has quickly grown since we deployed this tool. And this weekly outlook is based on that interpretation, on that model that is the foundation for the anticipated tidal water levels that we might observe along the coast. And so when you actually get those emails, it takes you directly to the dashboard. But what I'm going to do before we go directly to the dashboard, which Diana will show the functionality for, is just kind of show you how you get to it through the hub. And then just highlight that we do have other ways that we are in the hub bringing updates more in the near future. So how do oh, there we go. I was trying to figure that out. This is weird. It's a tiny mouse and a giant screen. Okay, so this is the hub, the Water and Climate Resilience Metrics Hub. You can find this on our XWeb, but also if you just Google SFWMD Metrics Hub, this comes right up. And again, this is where we have all of our information in a more like digestible, public-friendly way, but also provide access to tools that are automatically developed to look at trends. So that's what this section is, the emerging trends that we have. We'll be bringing a new section to have the flood resource here as well, linked. And then right here in our future outlook is where we're bringing all of our essentially predictive products. The first one that we had was looking at rainfall, and that was more of a long-term planning and vulnerability assessments. But then right now, where you go to view the king tide predictions is right here under enhanced tide predictions. And what we do is we provide a story map, and it really shares the information that we're providing here at this forum today. So some kind of background on what king tides are, how they impact us here in South Florida, some data that can show you just exactly how heightened water levels may be, more on impacts, how this is relevant. These are really the key points that Carolina went over when she introduced this topic. A bit about how we're collecting flood observations, which we'll also talk about shortly. And then we talk a little bit about the NOAA tide predictions and link all of that information as well. And then talk about each season, we're going to update this section just showing what can be expected for each year's king tide season and show similar graphs to kind of show that those heightened levels and those peaks and those date ranges that we might expect impacts along the coast. And then kind of diving into the model that we have in partnership with now brought to all these additional sites that Todd highlighted. And so we included those there. this is the part Diana will cover, so I'm just going to skip it really quick. She'll show you how to use the dashboard, which is what the title Outlook links you to. But then we also provide information on the flood thresholds that are available from NOAA. And then we have a chart there, and we're working with our partners at the Planning Council to update some of that too, as well as relevant references. So yeah, I'm going to turn it over to Diana, and she'll show you all of the functionality that GIS built to be able to access this.
Hello, I'm Diana Alvarez. I'm a geographer with the Geospatial unit here at the district. And we at Geospatial were tasked to put together an interactive, user-friendly tool for filtering and viewing of the tidal prediction model data that Todd talked about in the previous slides. We, of course, needed some tool that we were able to put some processing on that would effectively update the daily data. So after reviewing a couple of options, we decided that a dashboard would be the best tool that would serve all of those needs. So with that in mind, I'm going to introduce you to the Enhanced Tide Prediction Dashboard. I am going to do a small demo of its features and functionality. Okay, we're going to go to the next slide. Okay, here we go. Is it working? One moment.
Are you trying to bring the presentation back?
Yeah,
Oh, that demo was fast.
so we can put that.
Oh, this mouse, I'm sorry. We have degrees, I swear. Wait,
So
and then
let's go to. Okay. And as Nicole mentioned, the dashboard can be found, the link can be found on the weekly tidal outlook forecast or on the hub metrics, on the hub metrics for sustainability, and is embedded in the Enhanced Tidal Prediction Story Map. But we have it up here. I have the link here, so we're gonna go straight into it. Do we see it? I don't see it.
So if you
I
go,
wonder if it's,
yeah, go to.
'cause I see it over
Oh,
there,
you're
but
not
I don't
seeing it
see
all.
here.
Okay. That would be confusing. Okay, so yeah, just go down that way. There we go. Yep.
Is it up?
It's not showing. So the screen that she is interacting with is not showing on the, not being projected to the audience.
it was up the dashboard?
Yeah, let her do it.
Okay.
Yes, I see the mouse there, but. Okay.
Yeah, go into the application. Just hit that okay. Did that, oh, can she not see it yet?
No.
Look up there, okay, and click on the ones you want. Get it?
I was hoping that I could see it here. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
I'll do
no,
it there.
that's an extension.
Okay, so what you can see it up there. I can't see it here. That's what I was looking for. But the features that we have on the dashboard are a map, the graphs and the table with all the data. And as soon as you come into the dashboard, the first thing that you're going to see is data for today's date. So you have the date for today here, and you can also go back a couple of days if you want to look at historic data that is available on our database. So for today, we're gonna look at today's data. And then the next tab that you are able to leverage is the select a tide gouge. And for this option, you can select any of the 7 tide gouges that we have data collected on for the model. And we can look, for example, at Port Everglades. And what the dashboard would do is it would first zoom into the location of where the tide gouge is. And we had put in the map canals and structures, and so that you can see all those features as you look at the tide gouge. But most important, we have the graphs that are updated daily with the model predictions in them. And for this, the next tab that you have at the top will also allow you to select a model, which will further filter the data that you are seeing in the screen. So for example, we select the ensemble model. So you have data from for today's date for Port Everglades, which you can see in the map, and you can see also you can look at the graphs for the ensemble model. If you want, you can go ahead and change model or change the tide gouge location that you'd like to look at features around the tide gouge. And the graphs and the data, you can also, we have these 2 tabs here. The first one has the daily tide predictions, and the other one is also has the 6-minute prediction, which you can also look at and filter by model, of course. Whatever data is available to us is it's updated daily on the dashboard, so for the user to be able to go into the link and look at the data. You can also look at the table, and so it's a very interactive tool. It doesn't require much training for the user. It's very user friendly. And when you go here, you can clean the tide. Okay, so that is all for the dashboard. I am going to go back to the presentation. Okay, so we looked at, I'm sorry. So we already looked at the model, the dashboard for the models, and now we're gonna go back to one of the points that Carolina made at the beginning of the presentation, which is the long-term data strategy that entails the capturing and storage of relevant flood data. And with this goal in mind, a team was assembled to conduct training on high water marks and flood observations. The effort was led by Madeline Rinka from Geospatial and supported by me and Brian McCackern and Keelan Wildon from Surveying. And what we did is we went out and we conducted 9 sessions at various locations throughout the region in the month of April. And we trained 121 participants, 50 from field stations from the district, 33 from 9 counties, 21 from 9 municipalities, and 16 from 3 water control drainage districts. And over there in the slide, you can see our picture. That's us, and there is high water mark measure that we went out to do. We can do next slide. Okay. And the content of the training included an overview of the resiliency wet season readiness efforts, but the focus for us was to train participants on the available district tools, when to use them and how to use them to collect and share flood data. We have, in your screen, we have two available forms that are hosted on a GIS application called Survey 123. The first one is the flood observations form, and the second one is called high water marks. And the training included field instruction on how to identify a high water mark and how to collect that data and put it into one of the two forms so that that data can be reviewed and then put into the into our database to build that database and stay in the repository where it will be available for everybody to see and to see and available for everybody. The training resources also are available in the, I think it's the hub, the South Florida Water Management District Hub Resilience webpage. And we are thinking to do training opportunities each year to train people on how to do, how to conduct the high watermark collection of data and to use the resources that we had put out for that. We welcome also feedback from the public and from other entities, and we have the email that is directly to us for people to reach out with questions, comments, concerns. The QR code that you see in the slide is to the flood observations application, which is available publicly. The high watermark application is not available publicly to put in data in it because it does require a little bit more of technical instruction. So we left that one closed for participants of the training. So that is what I have for high watermarks, and I'm gonna pass it over to Chris.
Good morning. I've spoken several times, so I think you all should be familiar with the flood resource that we've put out. We launched it in November of 2023. We've been talking about opening it up. The hub that we've demoed in the past is the public resource that has the local contact viewer, has the flood observations, and has a current event viewer for public information. What we did in August, this is September. In August, we opened up the site for account creation, and we offered training on August 16th to external participants. I believe that it went out to the whole resiliency email. We had 138 stakeholders who participated. Thank you very much for that. Since during that training, I think we had 50 or 60 accounts created. The one message on that is that if you created an account, but we couldn't determine an affiliation with a local government or state agency, we did not provide access to the flood application, which I'm going to show next. So what we have is a process in place. We have provided instructions on how to create an account, and those materials are available on the training resource that Diana just mentioned. Our preference is that if you create an account, you use your government email account. I know some folks that participated in high watermark training that were associated with drainage districts didn't necessarily have a city, county, or state email. The process is that we review the accounts. I provide them to Resiliency. Resiliency confirms whether the account creator is affiliated with a local government, drainage district, or state agency, and they also make a determination as to whether they should be provided access. The use and the data use and limitations are related to working on resilience efforts and resilience initiatives associated with documenting flood or applying for grants or validating models, those types of things. So coordination of account access is through Office of Resiliency. So if you have created an account, but you haven't, and you're affiliated with a local government and you haven't received access yet, please reach out to Resiliency and let them know so they can let us know about account approval. What we also introduced in July of this year was the repository application. The repository application is only accessible to those who have an account. It's a beta version. There are some things, this isn't a dashboard, I wish it was a dashboard, so it doesn't have all the interaction that we're hoping for. There will be a new release coming up, but we welcome your comments as you log in, get your account, gain access, and you start utilizing the tool. Please let us know how it's helping, how it's not helping, how it can be improved. It's an application that is a single experience with 6 different focused experiences within it. There's a current event viewer that will show you additional information than is on the current event viewer, because we do review and decide whether this should be a publicly shared observation or not. There is a focus on the flood-prone areas that we've identified as having recurrent, and you can look at the documentation that we have for each of those flood-prone areas. And then there's focused event information, photo viewer, flood observations, and high water marks. There's download capabilities, so if you're interested in a specific event that impacted your area and you want to see what's available, you can come into the event layer and it'll provide you everything that we know about for that event. There was something else I wanted to share with you all. There's a help tab that explains it all. Oh, I know what I went to. So one thing I want to share is it's kind of interesting now that the tools are out, we're receiving observations and they're not all associated with events. And I think that this may be an important reason for local governments to log in and look at reports that are coming in. I just got one yesterday from an area in Kissimmee, and they were saying, you know, every time it rains, that it's unusual that my road and my driveway flood. But this year, every time it rains, I'm flooding. And what we could then look at when I zoomed in is that they're right adjacent to a wetland area. We've had a lot of rainfall. It means the ground's saturated. And I think that that's an important piece of information that you can gain here as a local government to gain insights into what may be happening in your communities and what may be upcoming as we move through the wet season. So with that, that's all the information I have to share. If you do have questions about account access, I'm going to be hanging out here in break, so please come ask me any questions you might have.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions from around the table to Todd, Nicole, Diana, or Chris? Yes, Amy.
Hi, Amy Eason, Martin County. My question is on the tide predictions, the modeling that was done, and seeing where the location of the tidal gauges are. I'm assuming, can this only be done on NOAA tidal gauges?
The answer yes, but if you want to provide more, yeah, only on NOAA tidal gauges.
I'll talk to Todd later.
Talk to Todd. Any more questions? Great. Before we go to the break, just a quick update. Just in terms of all the accessibility, the tools are public. There is information that is protected, some of the eyesight data and all of that we cannot make available to the whole public. That's why we have this layer of account creation, so the right people can access the right data and also download. So some limitations to the overall public, but the tool is public, the data is public. Again, just some of the data is protected and access to it is restricted in some cases, so that's why we needed to create those accounts so everybody can, the government people that needs to have access and can download the data can do it. The dashboard just doesn't. Yeah, no, but the data itself is, yeah. Okay, great. So we have a break. I know it was a long morning already. I wasn't expecting 2 hours, but we went through 2 hours in the morning. Long presentations. We have two more. They are not as long as the morning ones, very important. So let's do a 10-minute break, 11:15. Let's come back, please.
like every day.
We are live.
Should I go in today? Well, why go in today?
This counts as an office today, doesn't it?
And I'm here, Yvette. This is Mike Schmidt.
Thank you. We'll be starting in just a few seconds. Carolina's wrapping up conversation.
Very good. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, we are back here. We still have two presentations. Let's not extend this too long. Hopefully we can end near noon. So this presentation now is from the City of Hollywood. First, I want to thank Michael, who is online for a big reason, John and Tom for being here with us today, and also City of Hollywood staff. Jeff is here also. We have the entire team ready to share a little bit of the updates that they have from a very integrated process where they are aligning their stormwater coastal master plan and flood vulnerability assessments. So we were exposed to this about a month and a half ago, and I felt it was a very relevant topic. We always invite local governments to come and talk with us about these updates in flood adaptation and flood vulnerability assessments, and this is a very strong one. So thank you for the time, for the availability, for being with us this morning, and with that, I would transition to Michael.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Carolina. This is Mike Schmidt with CDM Smith. Our team will present today. I'm the lead engineer for the project. John Goldman, our project manager, will present, and Tom Nye, our lead modeler, will present. I'll talk about goals. The team will present on constraints, the extent of flooding, the plan to achieve mitigative measures, coordinating with the vulnerability assessment of the adjacent communities, and the CIP and strategies to get there. Next slide, John. So as we look ahead to the end map, what are the metrics for success to get to the plan? So as we look at flood control, we want to make sure that we don't just move it to downstream. So we want to solve comprehensively the problems, the projects throughout the city, while we retrofit, protect for water quality, recharge the aquifer, make sure we can maintain the system, have sufficient funding to get there in incremental steps, working with the adjacent communities, grant programs as possible, and the city's utility, and make sure it's acceptable to the community. We define levels of service or metrics for flood reduction, the amount of water quality treatment, and it's going to be significant, and for aquifer recharge, so we can be adaptable and resilient and sustainable. So, importantly, too, equitable across the community. So now I'm going to turn it to John, who's going to talk about the constraints, and Tom, who will talk about the modeling and applications.
Good morning, everybody. My name is John Goldman. I'm a senior associate with CDM Smith. I'm a project manager for the City of Hollywood Stormwater Master Plan. Several years ago, the city had noticed that as a coastal community in Broward, the flooding was getting more frequent and deeper in their different areas of their city. And a very forward-thinking approach decided to stop doing localized small drainage studies and look at the city's drainage from a citywide perspective, including off-site, to really get to the root cause of what was causing that flooding and to look to the resiliency of the future. We said southeast community in Broward County, low, relatively flat terrain. It's a high groundwater table. It's near build-out and imperviousness is very high. It's many homes in low-lying areas, older homes down as low as 1 NAVD in streets in certain areas. There's little available storage areas to use as nice detention ponds and other things like that. And of course, over time, the increasing high tides and sea level rise. And there was a lack of an existing system over time. And you compound that with the fact that you still have the regulatory requirements for no impact to stages and storage and flows downstream or upstream impacts. And now you have something that is really needs to be an integrated master plan. We started just like every other program, which is heavy in the public information campaign. Our team partner, Brazaga, helped us with workshops with the citizens and setting up, as you've seen in other presentations, areas where the citizens can send in their photos and crowdsource and help us with our calibrations and verifications in the future in all the different neighborhoods that we needed. And they could put dots on a map, and we would analyze these. We also looked with the Department of Public Utilities, their O&M staff, where do you have to go deploy pumps? What are the problems during certain rainstorms when there's north or east? How does that all fit together? We also looked at our FEMA repetitive loss areas, flood complaint databases, and of course, first responders and media coverage. And here's kind of a map. You can see it's fairly extensive of all the different areas that we had stormwater problems. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Nye and tell you a little bit more about the technical aspects of the model that we use for the resiliency.
Good morning, everyone. So the district canal, the C11, enters from the north side of the city and is the Dania Cutoff Canal to the intercoastal. There's also the C10 canal that runs through the center of the city. But the city, most of the city, everything east of the turnpike is not behind the South Florida Water Management District structure. It's free flow to the intercoastal and free flow out to Port Everglades. On the west side of the turnpike, the northwest portion of the city flows into the Central Broward Water Control District, which eventually gets into the C11. And then the southwest corner of the city flows into the South Broward Drainage District, which eventually gets down into C9 in Miami-Dade County. The model is built with EPA SWIM, which is a full hydrologic and hydraulic model. The hydraulic is a fully dynamic model, which means it can handle loop pipe networks, backflow, pumps, and other structures to model the city. We have a lot of the city of Hollywood is somewhat irregularly shaped, so we have a lot of outside areas that contribute to the model. But within the city, the resolution is down to about 5 acres. So there's about 3,000 subbasins in this model. And the level of pipe size gets down to 24 inches in general, but sometimes much smaller if that's the only pipe in the neighborhood. And we're doing that, we're trying to get down to a neighborhood level, a block level of resolution, so we can really tell everywhere in the city, what is the constriction? Is it not is it a tailwater condition? Are we close to the intercoastal and we can't get water out when the tides are high, or is it more of a pipe or a lack of pipe up in the uplands area where the rain is too hard, too intense for the primary system? The other key part of this model is that once the stages get above the grade inlets, it gets up into the ground. We're using a high-resolution LiDAR we have stage storage curves above every inlet and interconnected overflows from one subbasin to another. So there's thousands of overflows linking the above-ground elements, so we can really get to what the flood levels are in some of these areas. We calibrated the model to existing rainfall events. There was a very large December 2019 storm in the east, Hurricane Eta in the west, and then later we looked again at the April 12th storm of 2023, and just recently the June 12th storm of this year, to continually update and validate the model. As well as the LiDAR used everywhere, we flew a special purpose LiDAR along the seawalls to try to get a really high resolution seawall layer, so we can tell where the city is vulnerable to king tides and other low surge events, and high surge events too, but it's really the low-level surge events in conjunction with rainfall that the master plan is trying to look at. Where the LiDAR couldn't pick up, whether through trees or some other obstruction, we went out and surveyed by hand the rest of the areas to get a high-resolution description of the seawall. We have multiple levels of service that we were trying to meet, so we're looking citywide. We're trying to meet level of service everywhere in the city, not just the areas like where the officer is in hip deep water, but anywhere in the city where we weren't meeting these two levels of service. And the first one was 3 inches above road crown in a 5-year storm for side streets and for the 10-year storm in the major roadways and the evacuation routes. And the second one's a little less strict, but potentially more affordable in a lot of areas, which is 6 inches above road count, but always for a short duration. A short duration may be 20 minutes if it's close to a pump station or something else that drains it away quickly, but up to an hour or two elsewhere. But we looked at every road in the city to make sure the water wasn't ponding for days like it does in the existing condition. So on the left is the 10-year storm flood map. It's a little hard to see at this resolution for the existing condition. And you can see as you get toward the intercoastal, those areas where the lakes come in off the intercoastal called North and South Lake, the areas between the lakes over there are very much flooded in the existing condition. Part of the reason for that is we're using a boundary condition in our design storm modeling of a high king tide. So it's a 2.5 foot NAVD boundary condition, which is higher than a lot of the roads in that area. So even if there's seawall and backflow prevention, once it starts raining at those king tides, the water's not going anywhere. And then there's some other, even in the area, say, between I-95 and the Turnpike, we're at relatively high elevation for the city. Everything's between 6 and, say, 15 feet. But there's still some pockets of flooding where there's just local topographic lows that the floodwater can't get anywhere. So we don't have the the finished floor certificates for every house, so we had to come up with a way of predicting whether or not our model is showing whether houses are flooding or not. And we're doing that by adding 1 foot above the 100-year flood and comparing that to LIDAR, adding 1 foot to the LIDAR and comparing that to the 100-year flood. And the yellow houses up there are the ones we're predicting to be flooded. The other ones have a little bit of space between the flood and the house. But this is done using GIS and the average perimeter around the house based on the LIDAR. The model is very sensitive to small changes in flood level because it's so flat. So if it was, for instance, 6 inches above LIDAR or 9 inches above LIDAR, we'd get very different house counts, but the reduction in house counts based on our mitigative alternatives are similar percents, whether we use it or not, whether we use 1 foot or not. In the bottom pictures, we're showing an area that floods really bad in the southeast corner of the city near Hellendale Beach, right up against the intercoastal. And we do have surveys of some of the houses, like the one where the man is standing, and his house is more than 1 foot above LIDAR, even though it's some of the older areas. This area floods so bad, all these houses are built up a little bit more. But as you can see, it's still quite deeply flooded. He's about 36 inches above the road in front of him. And this is one of the roads that's about 1 NAVD for the road. So it's very deeply flooded, even in we're not talking the April 12th storm here. This one was about 9 inches. It was still a big storm, but they flood pretty badly on a normal afternoon summer thunderstorm. We also looked at sea level rise under 4 different conditions based on the FS 380 sea level rise scenarios, and how that affected especially the coastal areas based on the seawall elevations today. And then in our mitigative alternatives, we raised the seawalls, both public and private, to Broward County standards. So in our mitigative alternatives, the seawalls protect against the king tides, but as you get to the intermediate high for 2070, then we start having issues again, especially as you go up the C10 canal. I believe this is. Oh yeah, so this is just a flood map of the different sea level rise scenarios, and we looked at the number of days of flooding, annualized for the different scenarios based on vulnerabilities at a neighborhood level. Because we had the high resolution seawall, we can look at I think we looked at more than a couple dozen different locations along the coast and had different predictions of number of days flooded for each one of those areas.
Okay, so that did add a whole layer of detail for the vulnerability analysis, which was done separately for the city, because we were able to run the actual storms with flooding and not just do a simple GIS analysis of what was happening out there for predictions. So what you're looking at here is an example of what we call a CIP area, capital improvements area. That's the same one that Tom was talking about before between the lakes. And on the top right picture, that's the existing conditions, and on the bottom you see the CIP, which is all the lines and pump stations and other things that we put in, and the flooding mitigation that we've done there. We had identified approximately 40 CIP areas contained around the city. These run between $35 and $40 million a piece on this size to get down to the alternative 2 level of service, and it consists of piping, collection systems and inlets, and pump stations and outfalls. Exfiltration systems, very important, capturing the water uphill and to do water quality. The more we put into the ground, the less goes into the canal, so we impact the stages and flows less. Gravity and pumped aquifer recharge wells east of the 10,000 TDS line where it's permitted. Swales and detention ponds in city parks where we can adapt into those. And of course, we talked about the shoreline protection. But most importantly, when we come to this type of CIP, this is where we coordinate with the vulnerability analysis. On each one of these areas, we did do trial and error to the point of diminishing returns. As you know, stormwater infrastructure gets exponentially more expensive for that last few inches to start getting down towards the level of service there. And many of these areas that had critical structures, it was much simpler to simply raise a panel or to flood-proof a building or create some sort of flood barrier rather than spend the X millions of dollars additionally to lower the flood elevations in the entire area. So that's kind of the way we use this with the vulnerability analysis when we were coordinating on that. We did do a FEMA hazardous citywide analysis for flood damage avoidance. This is for our firm CRS credits to make sure that the master plan takes full credit for what they're doing here. Alternative 2 came out to a 2.5 benefit to cost ratio. Anything above 1 is acceptable and great. A 2.5 meaning that for every dollar you spent on the CIP, you're getting $2.50 back in flood mitigated damage avoidance there. So we did run that for all the scenarios so that we have that so we can get our grant money and other things and prove the benefit cost to what they're doing. We'll talk about one other interesting thing since we were doing the king tide predictions before, so we'll talk about that, how we use the model.
Yeah, so once we had a model built for at the high resolution along the coast for the stormwater, we also looked at it for how it was behaving during king tides. We know through the LIDAR what the seawalls are, and we know where the backflow preventions devices are in the pipes, the gravity outfall pipes. And so we went out and looked at what we had the model predict what sunny day flooding should look like, and then we went out during a king tide in multiple events and found out that it wasn't always matching what the model should. So we were able to take the model, crack some backflows, so allow the water to not completely be sealed, and then looked at some seawall locations that also were not sealed completely. So there was some low areas where the tide was coming in and flooding the streets. And it's a little hard to see, but we have the NOAA prediction in blue here, and then the red above it is what the actual tide was. So we came back the day after when we could get what the real tide was. And I kind of knew that this happened a lot. I know a lot more today about why this happens, based on what we heard earlier of how the NOAA can be under predicting based on wind, which we're looking at here, but a whole lot of other factors. So in the future, we can use this tool with the district prediction and come up with a better estimate. But what we did once we recalibrated to leaky backflow preventers and places where the seawall needs to be potentially repaired, we were able to create a suite of flood maps. So we ran 6 different tide elevations with, I believe, 5 different rainfalls, and came up with 30 different flood maps that the city could use to predict based on the NOAA prediction or whatever we can use in the future and what the rainfall prediction is. And then they could look at one of the maps and say, well, this street's going to be flooded, and they get their barricades out and whatever else they can do. And along the beach, for instance, we know that FDOT is going to upgrade some of the backflow preventers and actually change some gravity systems out for pump systems, so we can go back into the model, make those changes, and then re-predict what the king tide flooding could be for those days. And that tool can be used again, and hopefully some of these will go away as improvements are made. And then as the master plan is implemented, then all of it should go away based on our mitigative alternatives.
Okay, and with that, we'll take any questions that you have.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the audience? I have one, but I will wait. Yes.
Hi, Megan Houston with Palm Beach County. What would you say is the easiest way to just explain the difference between the stormwater master plan and a vulnerability assessment and how they complement each other? Because we have jurisdictions wondering if they need to do one, both, or whatever.
I think our biggest takeaway watching the Vulnerability Act in action was more about the legal meeting the letter of the law. For Florida statutes, FS 380, you must do this, 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 and this. The model was a tool to help predict some of those things, but there's a lot of additional information that goes into that. We were mostly focused on flood mitigation here, and there are areas that the vulnerability analysis comes up with that shows areas of vulnerability that we don't pick up on in our near term or within the useful service lives of our equipment, that type of thing. So there are other specific requirements in the vulnerability analysis that we didn't look at, but we complemented that with our model runs.
Yes? Yep.
So while you were presenting, I pulled up the June rainfall event data we got from ISI, our SAR vendor, and we have some data probably that would be very useful for you in showing actual flooding that was observed during that event. So I have it here on my computer so that I can show you after the presentation.
I appreciate that. Thank you. That's important.
Yes, yes.
Good morning, Alana Irwin, Sustainability and Resiliency Administrator for the City of Boynton Beach. In your CIP example area, when you were demonstrating North and South Lake, I saw that one of your solutions was gravity and pumped aquifer recharge wells. Are there any challenges or considerations for these type of infrastructure in lower lying areas? Because the community that I work in Boynton Beach is a similar setup. We are very low lying, we have a very unique geology under the surface, and we've been encountering some challenges to try to install this infrastructure. So are there any challenges or considerations that you guys made when making this recommendation for CIP projects?
Yeah, we were fortunate to have some data from Hollandale to the south, which was kind of a CFS per well, per foot ahead type thing. For pumped wells, we don't think there's more of a challenge there. You obviously have to keep them clean, but we always have an overflow with an emergency. You don't want to rely on that as your only way out if it's possible, right? And then we were just very conservative with our well spacing. We had our hydrogeologists look at mounding between and other things. And then on top of that, you do your GIS exercise, no contamination nearby, no petroleum areas where the geology was favorable and things like that. So there's plenty of challenges putting that in. So what we do, we leave it open. We're trying to put as much exfiltration, as many wells as possible first, so that we don't impact the flows downstream. And if that varies by area, then wells can be taken out of certain areas and moved into others. But yeah, they do clog, and we do have some information from other cities that we were very conservative on how much each well could take.
Yeah, I think he mentioned during the presentation that the wells can only go east of the 10,000 TDS line, but also for both exfiltration and gravity wells, we had the cutoff at 6 foot NAVD. Anything less than 6 foot NAVD, we didn't suggest it. I think we just recently relaxed that a little bit west of the Turnpike because we think some of the projects out west of the Turnpike are going to be a little bit longer in duration before they come in. So we went down another foot west of the Turnpike so we can give some relief there earlier. But everywhere else, because of sea level rise and because you need to have that driving head into the aquifer for them to work, we had that cutoff at 6 foot NAVD.
Great, thank you.
And this is Mike Schmidt to also add on. A serendipity of the wells with all those constraints is that after pre-treatment, dissolved nutrients are still in the water after best management practices. So dissolved nutrients go down the wells also. So there's an additional water quality benefit as well as a saltwater intrusion barrier benefit of putting the wells east of that 10,000 TDS line.
I'm sure City of Hollywood is looking at that part too. Okay, my question was related to, I love the point that you made there in terms of informing your vulnerability assessment based on how far you can go on your stormwater master plan. So the way I'm reading that is you first understand what is your capacity in terms of how much water you can remove or move away from your critical assets. And then when you have a residual risk that is significant, we use that information to help prioritize your vulnerability assessment. Can you confirm if I'm reading this right and maybe just expand on that?
Yes, Chris Rorschach, excuse me, Chief Resiliency Officer for the City of Hollywood, and Jeff Jang, our Assistant Director for Public Utilities. So this was a joint effort between utilities and in my department, I'm in Design and Construction Management, which led the vulnerability assessment. So I think it's we're looking at from both angles. The vulnerability assessment looked at city-owned property only that we have control over and what would be most vulnerable to either stormwater flooding or tidal influences. So yeah, I think for the prioritization, it's a combination of both. We can't look at either one in isolation. So looking at a combination of where we're seeing the tidal flooding, and CDM mentioned we have a separate project and program where we're looking at replacing seawalls that are on city-owned property and or nature-based solutions for shoreline protection, and then looking at that in combination with the stormwater infrastructure and what areas may be lacking and where we need to upgrade our stormwater. So I think it's looking at both the short term and what can we do today. We're in storm season now, so what can we do to help our residents and our community today, and then how do we build that incrementally going forward for the future and get to the point John mentioned, I think, out in the future where everything would go away, hopefully. Many years out, but it is a challenge, and how do we do the short term as well as keep an eye on the long term.
Thank you. No, thank you. Excellent point. Any more questions? No. Yes, Jennifer.
I was wondering, a lot of the counties we're working with are doing like the 100-year event, a scenario for their vulnerability assessments. Did you all go beyond that? And we just recently had a rainfall event in Sarasota that wasn't even linked to a storm that was a 200-year event where we got 20 inches in less than 24 hours. So I just wondered, is that something that is being configured either into your vulnerability assessment process or into the stormwater master planning process?
Okay, yeah. Actually, for example, we found out the stormwater master plan model is a very useful tool. Actually, the worst situation, Hollywood and Fort Lauderdale got hit was last year, April 12th rain event. Actually, during that event, initially the publication says every 1,000 year event, then reduce 700, 800 year event. And CDM did do the model calculation, and besides city did initial emergency response, and based on the model input and also our field observations, we deployed a lot of emergency bypass pump stuff. So yes, regarding some rain event exceed 100 year event, we did use some, and it helped us.
I would add, though, for the vulnerability assessment itself, we did not go beyond the 100-year storm. We did do several scenarios, and our consultant showed some mapping, and as you go out from the 25 to 50, 75, 100, it gets more and more inundated, especially in the eastern part of the city, but we didn't run specific scenarios up to like a 1,000-year event.
Great. Any more questions? Okay, let's move to the last presentation. I'll invite team to get up and start. I know I'll join you at some point, but I think you go first. And we also have Eva Velez, the Chief of Ecosystem Branch, online. She was going to join us in person today, but she is now virtual, and she can help answer questions as needed. And we also have Jenny Smith here. She's also on the core team right now, helping on this study. So thank you, team.
All right, so good morning, everyone. I know it's getting close to lunchtime, so I'll try to go kind of quickly here. And I think that Carolina kind of touched on where we are with especially the comprehensive study, so I won't go too much into that, but we're doing some pre-coordination on that, waiting on congressional appropriations so we can really kick off that big comprehensive study of most of the southern part of the peninsula. In the meantime, we're working diligently on moving forward our flood resiliency studies, and my next slide will kind of cover, nope, it did not. Where did, okay, did we take that one out? With all of the strategy. It's number 5, okay. Okay, I'm gonna go out of order then. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about our strategy and how we're moving forward our CNSF flood resilience study efforts. As we've talked about before, we had started a Section 216 study which looked at 4 planning reaches covering Broward and Dade counties. And we've been working through trying to settle on a scope, schedule, and budget for that effort. And as we got further into discussions, as we moved up our vertical chain, it became very apparent to us that we needed to attack it with a different strategy because what we were proposing was just too big, too much risk in successful completion of that. So through the collaboration that we've been doing, not only with the district, but with the counties and other local stakeholders, we came upon a strategy that's really kind of highlights why integration of efforts is really important, why that communication and collaboration is really important. So our strategy is to use different authorities that we have available, different efforts that are already ongoing to tackle that same geographic area, but not all under one study. So this is kind of our integrated approach to still get solutions for that full study area, but using different authorities to do so. As Carolina mentioned, for Reach A covering Broward County, the district partnering with Broward County with federal support on the Corps side is undertaking a Section 203 study, and I think Carolina will talk more about that effort. In Reach B, which covers that very southern part of Broward County and the northern part of Dade County, so the C7, 8, 9 basins, the ongoing grant work that the district has been partnering with the counties on through FEMA and through the Resilient Florida program we'll tackle kind of those immediate needs on those structures there with support from the Corps in the Section 408 review process. So that collaboration can hopefully lead to successful and more expedited implementation of solutions for the structures in that basin. Our Section 216 study will now, rather than focusing on the full geographic area, focus on Reach C, which is the heart of Dade County, so the C6 and Miami River Basin. And then Reach D, which we found from our initial modeling, so that's the very southern part of Dade County, is really driven a lot by coastal storm risk, coastal storm surge, and sea level rise, which was outside of the scope of our 216 to address solutions for that, since we were looking at inland flood risk. Coupled with the fact that there are a lot of water quality concerns with just adding more water to Biscayne Bay, that one will be better dealt with under likely the comprehensive study, which will allow us to look at things like regional water management and storage, as well as looking at compound flooding solutions in that area. So I think the feedback that we've gotten on this strategy has been really positive. And again, it really highlights why it's important that we're all here talking and collaborating on all of our efforts to really find some unique solutions to tackle problems that we do have. All right, now we'll try to go backwards and we'll talk about the individual studies. All right, so the Section 216 study, as I said, that's focused now on Reach C. We have been working really hard to try to get our scope, schedule, and budget finalized. And as we've been working, that scope is, of course, beyond what we are allowed under the 3x3x3 paradigm, so that 3 years, $3 million effort. So we need to take our scope to the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Civil Works to look for a granting of a request for additional resources to be able to handle our scope. So we're in the process of floating that up our vertical chain. So it's in Atlanta. We've submitted what we call the Vertical Team Alignment Memorandum, which documents what our plan is and the cost and schedule for that. So that's currently under review at South Atlantic Division, and then will be sent up to headquarters in Washington for their review before hopefully going to the ASA for his approval. As far as, so that's a bit of a process, but we're working through what that means in terms of budget and moving forward with our technical work. But in the meantime, we have progressed quite a few technical efforts through this study so far. To this point, everything has been focused on kind of that 4 planning reach effort. All of our modeling using our Mike Hydro tools for each of those basins. All of that has been completed for both our existing and future without project conditions, and that was shared back in April, I believe, with the team. Since then, that information, those stages, have been translated into inputs to our economic models. So the FDA model is the tool of choice to calculate economic benefits. So our economics team has been working really hard over the last 3 months or so to get those models set up, to be able to take in that Mike data, to get the economic database ready to run those models. And they've completed at least the first round of modeling on the existing conditions. So that's going through a kind of quality control review right now. And they'll be going back in and making some tweaks to that model before we run the future without project condition to get those potential damages. The plan will be, and Carolina had alluded to this earlier, sometime in the October timeframe, having another PDT public meeting to go over all of those results, both from that economic modeling, but also the evaluations we've done in the other categories, including regional economic development, environmental quality, and other social effects, which includes our environmental justice and social justice evaluations of the area. Plan will be to roll all of that information out to everybody, and at that point, these efforts will diverge on into their own continuation to reach solutions for each of these planning reaches. But we'll build on everything we've done to this point from a technical perspective. I think that covers where we are on the 216. I'll come back to this one You want to go, Carolina, and then I'll come back to the Shingle Creek? Okay. Okay, sorry.
Don't worry.
Had
I
it
think
in
we
my
were
head
both
a
we were
certain
both
order.
excited to present that slide. Let's be honest on this, and I think I move it inadvertently. I apologize for that. I just thought it would cover some of the points, and then we would present this jointly here. So I'll go back here just for a second to emphasize number one. It seems like a bureaucratic process. It seems a lot of numbers here, but this is such a big endeavor, what is happening right now here, to be able to run three parallel efforts, to be honest here, and get way more projects out of this entire effort advance. This is, we are really running on federal appropriations path, which can be extremely cumbersome, time-consuming. Those projects are large projects, and we need to find a viable path for us to be able to implement all those projects. And what we are setting up here is really novel. It's being presented even by the core team already as something that is a model for the whole nation. And it's truly a combination of partnership with the Army Corps, with FEMA, with the DEP at the state level, DM, the Water Management District, and the counties. Broward County is providing also significant funding for us to be able to spin off the Section 203 here at this point. They could not be here today. I would just, Jennifer and Greg emailed me to ask me to express their support to what we are sharing here today. It's the first time, actually, they're not here in those forum meetings. There was just a very big coincidence that both of them could not join us today, just when we are launching something that we took so long to get here and build. But they'll come at some point in the future to also share their perspective and the support that they have to this entire project here. So I'm sure we'll be able to hear from Dr. Jurado and Greg Mount here as well on how we are advancing this together. But anyway, summarizing again, big effort, running things in parallel here, using Section 203 authorization to do Broward Basins, using all the appropriations from FEMA, the grant awards that we got from FEMA with the support from DEM, plus Resilient Florida funding for REACH B. We'll be able to close all those projects in REACH B under this avenue, and then kicking off now, focusing the effort for the next stages under 216 under REACH C, which is a critical basin. It has been coming as a top priority in all the assessments that we did here at South Florida Water Management District. So John Minnick did share this update in the last governing board, but this is really the first time we are sharing more details with everybody. We have a series of agreements in place or near to be in place right now. We have also Matt Morrison in the room here. He is really running. He has a ton of experience with coordination with the federal level, plus he ran a 203 process in the past for the agency. So having him join the team here has been extremely critical for us to advance all those agreements. I mentioned in the beginning 37 agreements being negotiated with our procurement team. Those are a few of those. So we are right now working with the core SAJ office on federal activities and technical assistance. This is how SAJ office works with us under the 203 umbrella. So we report and we give the study directly to the Assistant Secretary of the Army. So we are working directly with the headquarters, but of course, we want to be able to work with the SAJ team who we have been walking all the steps up to where we are now, and we want to be able to continue to walk in those steps jointly with the SAJ office. So what we are doing is we are translating tasks and everything we want to do as part of the 203 under those two agreements. So we have the MOAs and the scopes of work that we are discussing right now with the Jacksonville office to be able to work with them. We are working with Broward County. As I mentioned, they are bringing funding to this as well. So we have an interlocal agreement that they're going to be, we are waiting for final budget process, and then they're going to work with their Board of Commissioners to get this approved. We have DEP funding also coming for this project to allow us to do the scope of work with our consultant companies. So I have here Georgia representing the JTEC team. Again, they also work on a 203 process in the path for us in the low car you work on both, right? The EA and the LOCAR. They have been leading this process on developing the feasibility study and the EIS documentation. Remember, we are under the design requirements as well, so we are bringing the whole Class 3 design requirements to this scope of work with JTAC, which is a large endeavor. We are really talking about designing 7 or 8 structures to a Class 3, which we call it 30% design here in the district language. But again, this is huge effort. We have to recognize the work that we are doing here also, and all the support that we have from the consulting team. We already had 3 modeling consulting teams working under the 216 umbrella, Hazen and Sawyer, Taylor, and Chenmore. We are 2 of them will continue on the 203 umbrella, and Chenmore will continue on the 216. Those contracts are not paused. They have been ongoing since the beginning of the 216. They run all the future without, and they are now beginning to set up the models to run the future with. So they are already setting up all those models for the entire area to run the future with for this. And also we will have supporting on the consulting side from the economic analysis, and some require independent reviews. On the right here, what we have is the letter from the Department of the Army authorizing us. It took us a few weeks to really get the letter from Secretary Connor to Drew, so we submitted a request to be able to work under the 203 authorization. And this is what really kicks off the process. So this letter allows us to really sit down with Jacksonville team, work on the MOAs and all the work that we are doing. We got this letter on August 22nd is the date. I think we received maybe even a day later. We were already sitting with the Jacksonville team on August 27 in person, everybody consulting, PMs and everybody really discussing this 203 and getting ready to execute the MOA. So this is a very tight schedule. I'm going to step into this again. I know I mentioned this in several of our efforts. We keep understanding the urgency of all of this, and understanding that we have targets from the beginning of the 216, especially Broward. They were very vocal about the goal of the WARDA 2026. They are bringing funding to that to be able to achieve WARDA 2026. And that's what we have here in terms of our proposed schedule for this 203. Again, it will be a little bit accelerated comparing to the 216 on Reach C, but we will try to walk as parallel as possible between Reach A and Reach C on those 2 studies, so Broward and Miami, but this is the schedule reflecting the Broward, for right now, the 203. So kicking off in August, we will work on data collection. We are already working on data collection from even before we sign the agreement, but we have an extensive data collection effort going on. We will have public scoping meetings that require NEPA scoping meetings in November. I will have to apologize and ask for the patience of everybody here. At the same time that I said that we are leveraging 216, there is a requirement to redo the NEPA scoping meetings for the 203. This is really the only piece we're going to have to redo. All the other pieces we're going to be leveraging from the 216, but those required meetings are going to be doing again. So we will schedule them appropriately, and I hope we can have the attendance. This is important for us on this whole process. We will begin, we'll be getting to modeling of alternatives and getting ready for a tentatively selected plan early in January. Our modeling team has a schedule to be able to complete that in early February, the whole modeling piece, including cost-benefit analysis. We are bringing the tools to the district. Right now, we run the FIAT to do flood damage analysis. This is the tool that we made available to all the governments. The Corps runs FDA. We brought this tool in-house last week. We are beginning to test how we can run in partnership with the Jacksonville office, but we want to be able to run this in-house too with the support from the consulting teams. And then we're planning this public meeting early in February next year for the array of alternatives. And then we work on all the reports, reviews, so draft feasibility study, recommended plan meeting, technical reviews. We are trying to build those technical reviews along the way. This is lessons learned from the previous 203 processes, right? Georgia. So we are trying to find checkpoints along the way with all the levels in the Army Corps and also some critical reviewers throughout the process, public review as well. Again, reinforcing that we need to get to this 30% design plan. This is the requirement that we get. So as we have a tentatively selected plan and a final feasibility study in EIS, we have to integrate all of that in the engineering attachment. So we are really working right now on geotech and some initial data collection, and we'll walk all those steps of surveys, geotech, and design analysis as part of this effort. With that, I'll turn back to you, and then if needed, I come.
All right. Cool. So yeah, this is a really exciting time. I think we've got a lot of work going on and really be able to accelerate some of this. One of the things you don't see on here is all the federal process that the district won't have to go through on the 203. So helps expedite that schedule. Unfortunately, we will still have to do that on the 216. All right, let me go back to leaving the southeast part of the state. I wanted to highlight, and I think I mentioned this at the last forum, that we had just gotten funding on the Shingle Creek and Kissimmee River study, which is a flood risk management effort that we're going to be undertaking with Osceola County. So it's an exciting effort to address some of the flood risk issues in the northern part of Osceola County, especially areas that were hit pretty hard during Hurricane Ian. We're working through the cost share agreement with the county now and anticipate kicking this study off the first part of next calendar year. So we'll be probably in the December timeframe when we have the next coordination forum. We'll have some more information on kind of when we expect to start the scoping process on this study. So this one is exciting. It's our first one, a project we've done with Osceola County in terms of flood risk management. So this is a much needed effort that's been many, many, many years in the making. So we're excited to kick this one off. And my last slide, I just wanted to highlight a few things. We talk a lot about the studies we're doing, but we actually do complete some of those and actually go for authorization. So I wanted to highlight 5 of the projects we have up for authorization in WRDA 2024. And they cover several of our business lines, which are all part of, and you've heard me talk about community resilience and all of the efforts that go into building that. Having these different business lines focused in different areas and being able to integrate all those together is really important. So that's why we're highlighting these. So from a coastal storm risk management perspective, we have the Miami-Dade Back Bay study that the chief's report was just signed on that. We also have an effort up in Ponte Vedra, which I know is outside of this area, but I just wanted to make note of that as well. We also have a navigation project in Tampa Harbor. Why is that relevant to this area? Well, we have 2 navigation projects at Port Everglades and the Port of Miami, which are ongoing. So navigation, while not directly connected to flood risk management or coastal storm risk management, does play a big part in resiliency in terms of economics for the region. So it's one reason I wanted to highlight navigation on here, because when you hear us talk about resiliency in Southeast Florida, you'll hear us talk about Port Everglades and the Port of Miami in context of how those projects will help build resiliency as well. And then aquatic ecosystem restoration. We have a big one, the Western Everglades Restoration Project, which is part of SERP, which is going for authorization this year. That's many years in the making as well. I think that one kicked off in 2016, so it's nice to see that one get to a chief's report and be up for authorization and provide some great benefits over in the western part of the Everglades. And then also highlighting the LOCAR effort, which is also part of SERP, done under 203 by the Water Management District, which is going for authorization this year as well. And that will provide storage north of Lake Okeechobee, which will greatly impact our ability to be able to better manage Lake Okeechobee and the way water moves through the system. So that's exciting to have that effort moving forward this year as well. So just a few of the things we've got going on, which are moving from study to design and construction. And I think that is it. So I'll sit down and any questions?
Any questions? Okay, it's noon, we are all hungry. I am happy to answer questions that you might remember after you leave here. So send us an email, I'm sure we can coordinate and provide any information that you might want. We also have our around the table updates, so we will just, starting from the right here with Charlotte County, Brendan, so let's just quickly, if you can just provide the most relevant updates from your cities, please. Thank you for joining us.
Can do. All right, Brandon Moody, Water Quality Manager, Charlotte County. Real briefly, we are now making headway into our vulnerability assessment, watershed master plan. Models are mostly complete for those, and we're just working on an internal reconciliation process for that. I have to call out CHNEP, who have been a great partner in helping to get especially vulnerability assessment work moving on that. Those have been kind of the highlights. We are actually bringing on board a resiliency-focused position who will be starting with us in 2 weeks. So we'll be able to do a lot more movement in research assessment and bolstering our capabilities in that regard.
Okay, just to add to a little bit to what CDM's presentation was, another component of our resilience and looking at our coastal resilience is we also have a dune master plan we're working with Broward County on currently. So the county is actually doing the design for us and funding that. But we have coordination with the county, so that will provide coastal resilience along the Broadwalk in Hollywood and all of our properties along the beach. Another big part, I think, of what we're doing is communication, and John touched on the public involvement that we've had, and we have a series or have had a series of workshops with our community, and that will continue going on. And I think the look now is, now that we're in storm season again, a lot of questions we're getting from our homeowners is, what can we as the city do to help our homeowners? I think a lot of folks are now starting to prepare for the hurricanes, in addition to the storm, putting up your shutters, but also, well, how can they harden their properties, or what opportunities are there out there for them? So that will be an area that the city will be looking into and seeing what we can do to help private property as well.
Yes.
Hi, good afternoon. I am Sonia Brubaker. I am the Chief Resilience Officer for the City of Miami. And I have a couple of updates. One is our vulnerability assessment. We are near complete. We are hoping to submit it within days, within the week. We used all of our modeling from our stormwater master plan in our vulnerability assessment, and that was updated in 2021 and also in 2024. We're looking at 160,000 assets. We're focused on the city, but also included county assets that are within the city limits and those that are regionally significant. Wastewater assets that are located in the city were the most vulnerable. Those are county owned, so it's really important that we looked at those, as well as city owned stormwater assets were also vulnerable. And through our public feedback, we found that parks were kind of the most public desired asset. And so also within our vulnerability assessment, we used high tide flooding at 2 feet NAVD, coastal storm tide flooding, and also compound flooding, and we looked at both 100-year and 10-year events. And then second, we are working on finalizing our draft extreme heat plan. This draft plan was out for public comment since April through the end of July, and it focuses on actions related to shade, water, and design. And these elements, they address both heat reduction, but also flooding. So like for shade, we have actions related to trees. So increasing tree canopy will also help with stormwater management. For water, we have actions increasing access to water bodies and access to safe drinking water. And for design, we have actions related to cool roofs, including green roofs, which helps with the on-site stormwater management on private property, as well as doing resilience hubs throughout the city. We received a bunch of feedback. We are incorporating that, and we're looking to finalize by the end of heat season. And then lastly, we did submit 2 Resilient Florida grants.
Excellent. Alana.
First, I want to thank you, Carolina, and your team for always putting on such a great forum for us to attend. I really think it gives us as local governments an opportunity to discuss some of the problems that we're facing and get access to the resources that we need to make sure that our communities are more resilient. So thank you, guys. In the city of Boynton Beach, we are getting ready to kick off a floodplain species assessment as part of our CRS efforts. We would like to improve our CRS rating to a 4. So we are going to be doing a floodplain species assessment and a subsequent plan. So once we get those completed, we are hoping to have that done by April of 2025. And hopefully once we come through the next rating system, we'll be at a 4. So we're very excited for this opportunity. We are about to also kick off for our adaptation plan. We were awarded a Resilient Florida program grant in the amount of $300,000 for us to come up with an adaptation plan for our community. So we're getting ready to kick off probably in late October to beginning November. So we're also very excited for that. And we recently just submitted a Resilient Florida program grant for our vulnerability assessment updates. Due to the changes in the statute that became effective July 1st, we have to make some changes to our projections for the sea level rise based on the new intermediate and intermediate low NOAA projections. So we'll be working on that. Hopefully we get awarded that grant next year and we'll be able to do that. We're also going to be kicking off at the end of this year, beginning of next year, some green infrastructure feasibility studies to see how we can incorporate a living shoreline model in some of our areas that are low-lying, that do have intense storm water, storm surge flooding or sea level rise, king tide type situations. So if we can get an idea of what our infrastructure actually looks like and solutions that will make our community both beautiful and resilient, we think green infrastructure is the way to go to that. That's all we have right now. Thank you.
Yes, Palm Beach County.
Good morning. I'm Jerry Clairday, the LMS CRS coordinator for Palm Beach County. Just a couple of updates. We did receive our APA letter from FDEM August 6th on our LMS revision. It goes before our board on September 17th for adoption. So then we are looking within 12 months to have all of our jurisdictions adopt. Excuse me. 2 weeks after we received our letter, we went straight into our CRS cycle visit. That was completed. We are in our 30-day interim where we do have to submit some of the finalized documentation. That's a very large program with a lot of moving parts from different divisions and areas. And so we are happily going to stay in Class 5 until Palm Beach County can finalize their watershed management plan, which at which point we do hope to ascend to 4.
Amy Eason, lead from Resilient Martin County. We received our draft vulnerability assessment. Hopefully we'll be finalizing that in the next month or 2. We've been actively coordinating with all of our municipalities within the county, the city of Stewart, Sewell's Point, town of Jupiter Island, and we've been reaching out to Indian Town and Ocean Breeze to make sure that we include all of our municipalities within our vulnerability assessment and make sure that we address their needs, as well as include them in our next endeavor, which will be our kickoff on our climate adaptation plan that we also received Resilient Florida funding for. I'm glad you had FDEM here because that helped me understand why my project is waiting so long for funding. I have a road raising project which I presented to this forum a long time ago, Mockingbird Lane, so I'm sort of waiting on that funding. As soon as we get that, we're off to construction. It is about a quarter-mile of road that we're raising like 3 to 4 feet, so it's pretty amazing what we're doing in this small little area. We've also started construction on our Phase 2 of raising MacArthur Boulevard. It's about 3 feet of raising from the end of MacArthur Boulevard on Hutchinson Island, from Sailfish Point to the north end of Bathtub Beach. We consider this as being basically our fourth component in producing a really resilient project. We started with a seawall that was protecting our park. We have done beach renourishment and some dune plantings, and this is our final component in there. They started off the construction, so that's pretty good. And then we submitted funding for a living shoreline on an unnamed island that's in front of a community, and hopefully we'll get it. But last year we didn't, so we'll hopefully get it this year. Thanks.
Jennifer Hacker, representing the Coastal and Heartland National Estuary Partnership, and as an entity in the U.S. EPA National Estuary Program, our organization has been receiving a lot of money through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, and we've been using that to help co-fund, along with Resiliency Florida, comprehensive vulnerability assessments in 10 counties, which is our service area in Central and Southwest Florida. In addition to the Charlotte County baseline CVA, which Brandon mentioned that we're funding, that thankfully is off, as he mentioned. We hired a contractor, WSP, and we're now in the data gathering phase of that. We have also been finalizing scoping with Highlands, Hardee, and DeSoto counties, where we're contracting the Central Florida Regional Planning Council through an interlocal agreement and their subs in their engineering library to help add on to the baseline CVAs that are already underway in those counties. What we're going to be funding is identifying and prioritizing adaptation action areas, as well as doing an analysis of the top 3 adaptation areas to identify specific adaptation strategies and proposed projects, as well as to do an additional risk and vulnerability assessment for underserved communities in those counties. We also are working on the remaining 6 counties right now, doing scoping to add different customized additions to their CVAs that are already in process. So different counties have different ideas of how they would like to augment meeting the baseline requirements. And then finally, I just wanted to make mention that on February 19th and 20th, we're going to be hosting the 2025 Southwest Florida Climate Summit. It's going to be held at the Charlotte Harbor Event and Conference Center in Punta Gorda, Florida. And registration will go live on our website, chnep.org, on November 1st. So if you're interested, check then. We have many distinguished speakers, usually the Chief Resiliency Officer, Senator Marco Rubio, our keynote speakers annually, Dr. Carolina Moran, and many other notable top scientists and policymakers will be giving information about how we can enhance resiliency in Central and Southwest Florida. So with that, thank you again to the team at the district. This has been a very informative and useful meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Jennifer. Okay, any more update? Okay, with that, do we have any public comments, Yvette?
I do not have any public comment cards.
Okay, good. Any additional need? Anybody wants to add anything before we close? Okay, with that, I will adjourn. I just want to mention one name here. I didn't mention in the beginning. I talked about the whole team support, but I just wanted to also emphasize and name David Colangelo. He is the lead from both the grant applications and the plan. September 1st is a big date, and I want to just name the person who has been leading all these efforts as well. So thank you, David, if you're listening there, for all your extensive dedication for us to get here and successfully submit all the 2 big goals that we have for September 1st. With that, thank you, everyone. I'll definitely follow up. We had the presentation from City of Hollywood. I now hear City of Miami is closing, and follow up with you, Sonia, to maybe bring, when you're ready, what presentation we really want to be able to hear. We saw and we provided comments, but I think you coming presenting will be great. Same thing, Elena, you are getting close we're more than happy to schedule a follow-up. And Jennifer has 10, so we plan ahead. We always value the opportunity to learn from those efforts that are being developed locally. The case from Hollywood today was inspiring, great, and thank you very much, everybody, for joining us.